And we are live.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Chaska City Council meeting. We are live via Zoom for Monday, January 25th, 2021. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. I have to read my legal statement here. Welcome, everyone. You might notice that the meeting looks a little different due to COVID-19 pandemic. We are holding our meeting via video teleconference because the City Council has declared a local emergency for COVID-19 pandemic. State statute allows us to hold our meetings remotely. Even though we aren't meeting in person, we want to make sure you can participate. If you have joined the Zoom meeting, you will notice that you are muted. We have a moderator on the call who will unmute those who wish to speak during public comment portions of the meeting. Public comments will be reserved for visitor presentation, public hearings, or special circumstances determined by the council. Once we reach those parts of the agenda, I will ask if there are any public comments. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by computer or tablet, please click on participants on the bottom of your screen and then select the raise your hand icon. If you wish to speak and have joined the meeting by phone, press *9 to raise your hand. Once your hand is raised, the moderator will announce your name or phone number and unmute your line. Please remember that public comment is provided at the discretion of the council and is meant to provide productive discourse on topics related to the city of Chaska. Speakers shall refrain from comment or behavior that is deemed disorderly, derogatory, obscene, indecent, or off topic. Any person engaging in such speech or action may be muted or removed from the meeting. If you are watching online or on Comcast Channel 15, please be aware of the following. Our council members, city staff, and presenters are participating in the meeting remotely. There is a delay between a live meeting and the online cable broadcast. All council actions will be taken by a roll call vote. Thank you. All right, with that, we will stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Welcome. Nate, will you call roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Grau.
Here.
Councilmember Wong.
Here.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Here.
And Mayor Winchell.
Here. Moves us to item number 4, adopting the agenda. With that, if there are not any corrections or additions, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved by Hubbard.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard,
Second by Hatfield.
second by Councilmember Hatfield. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilmember Grau.
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
And Mayor Winchell, aye. Passes 5-0. Moves us to item number 5, approving previous meeting minutes. This is for the January 4th City Council meeting. So again, if there are no corrections or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved by Hatfield.
Motion by Councilmember Hatfield,
Second by Hubbard.
second by Councilmember Hubbard. Discussion. Seeing and hearing none. Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilmember Grau.
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Mayor Winchell, yes. Passes 5-0. All right, moves us to item number 6, which is consent agenda items. Again, these are all items that need approval, not necessarily discussion, but any one of them can be brought forward if necessary. With that, is there anybody that has a comment or question on any of the consent agenda items? Matt, just I got real quick that 6A, is that basically people that have solar inputs? Is that what that is? It's about the small power production tariff.
Oh, couldn't get myself unmuted. That was a little nerve
We,
wracking.
we kept pushing mute, that's why.
Okay. Okay, repeat the question again. Sorry.
So that's right. That 6A, that the small power production tariffs, is that like people that have solar? That,
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's people who would generate their own electricity through solar. Sometimes it can be, you can see some people have small generation on their property, as long as it's in essence, they're selling it back into the system and buying, and so we need to have those pricing points in place each year.
Okay, I was kind of thinking that's what it was, but I just wanted to clarify that. So, all right, good.
Yep.
So does anyone else have anything? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve consent. Approving consent.
So moved by Hatfield.
I second by Wong.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Hatfield, second by Councilmember Wong to approve consent. Is there any further discussion on consent? Hearing none. Councilmember McGraw.
Aye.
Was that a yes?
Yes, sorry.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
your Winchell, yes, passes 5-0. All right, moves us on to item number 7, which is adopt ordinance 984, adoption of the chicken article to animal and fowl chapter.
Mayor and Councilmember, I'm going to turn this one over to Nate.
Just getting my stuff up. All right, Mayor and Council members, this is an item that we've all been working on here for a number of months. You might recall back in July of 2020 was the first time this topic was taken up by the City Council. We held a work session at that time, and that was at the request of some folks in the community who had expressed interest in being permitted to raise chickens. Currently, our ordinance does not permit that. Except for in areas that are rural agriculturally zoned areas. So that would be sort of the green belt area around surrounding the city is generally where those sorts of properties are located today. Out of that work session, council directed staff to draft some ordinance language that would permit raising chickens in residential areas, but also, drafting something that would mitigate the potential negative outcomes and concerns that surrounding neighbors may experience and that were raised during that work session. We held a second work session in December, which is where the ordinance that is being presented to you tonight was presented at that work session. There's some key provisions that were discussed in that, along with public comment and public feedback. That public comment and feedback is included in tonight's agenda item. So you have that with you in your materials. Some key provisions that were discussed was to specify the residential districts that would be eligible under the ordinance, the number of chickens that would be allowed, requirements for enclosures and their location on a lot. So there are setbacks and design guidelines or minimal design requirements around that. An annual permit fee was discussed, among other specifics in the ordinance. There were 23 individuals who had submitted comments at that time. 9 were favorable and 14 were unfavorable, and that was presented to you at the work session. Comments included questions about the permit fee, most of those comments suggesting it was too much, suggestions for changes to the enclosure and location requirements. So some were saying that there should be fewer requirements around those things, and some were saying there should be more requirements around those things. Concerns about smell and the noise that neighbors might experience. Concerns about impacts to neighboring property values. So the concern that someone looking at a house for sale and realizing that there's a chicken coop, chickens being raised next door, that may be something that would cause someone to not want to purchase that home. And concerns about enforcement. So people were wondering, how that would happen, and seeing some of the challenges that could be kind of brought to bear as a result of passing an ordinance like this. So at that work session, the council directed staff to bring the draft ordinance back and present it to council in a meeting for a vote. And so that's what we're doing tonight. In that work session, the council did not request any changes be made to the ordinance as it was presented at the work session. So what we're bringing to you tonight is what was presented back in December. No changes have been made. And that draft ordinance is included in the packet. In addition to all the comments that were received before and after the December 21st work session, those are included. Also, there's a display of 2 hypothetical chicken coop placements. That was at the request of Councilmember Wong. That was included in the packet as well. So you can see, and what we tried to do there was provide some sort of typical lots, right, in different settings. So one is downtown, to understand what a standard downtown lot might look like and how in relation to its neighbors. And the other one is, a more typical lot in our, newer areas. So trying to understand how that would look and the potential impact there in proximity and where the opportunity is for someone to have a chicken coop placed. I think, for both of them or any of them, it's important to understand as you're looking at those examples that it's really going to depend on the situation that any particular lot presents, and each lot has its own nuance to it. So these are examples, but it's not to say that, that's what everyone's going to see when they submit their permit application. And there certainly are lots in town that are too small. And, as a result of the 50-foot setback from a neighboring primary structure, and then the 10-foot structures from, or the 10-foot buffer from or setback from the lot line, there are lots in town that wouldn't be able to accommodate those things. That's not shown in those examples. So I guess if there's a recommendation here from staff, it's that the language presented strikes a balance between the allowing chickens to be raised in residential areas and addressing many of the concerns identified in the public process. If council desires to move forward with approving an ordinance to allow for raising chickens in the city, staff recommends approving the ordinance as presented. If council decides to approve the ordinance presented, staff requests a delay in implementation until April 1st of 2021. This time is needed to establish the necessary administrative processes, including an application form or review process, training staff how to evaluate those things, and establishing an enforcement process as well. So those are some of the items that we would want to focus on if council decides to approve this ordinance. And those are items that, not knowing whether council would want to approve this ordinance, we thought it was most prudent to wait until we had that decision known. So with that, I guess I'd open it up to any questions or comments that you might have for me.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, just one unrelated to this, but I don't want to forget about it. We did not have a visitor presentation as an agenda item.
Oh,
And I noticed it wasn't on there, so we just skipped it. So I don't know about our process of going back. I know we have other people on here. I just don't know. I don't know if there's any visitor presentations.
That's a good catch. It seemed like I was missing something, but I followed the agenda. It's not on there. I don't know.
Mayor, we can pick it up right after this item. I don't think anybody is here for visitor presentation because I know what most people are here for, different items. So,
okay. So, yeah, I apologize for that. I thought something seemed out of kilter there, but
We do have one hand raised. There is a guest here. Jay Pron is here for the chicken coops.
yeah, well, that's fine. That wouldn't be under that. So,
yeah.
But okay, well, let's go ahead and proceed with this, and then I will ask after we move on to the next action item if there's anybody that's here for visitor presentation. Good catch. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. All right. So we're down to where Nate basically said, is there questions from council at this point?
I don't know if I necessarily have any questions as much as just a couple of, I don't know, suggested, changes maybe to this. One of our residents had talked about maybe even on the application, just making sure that there is just a very explicit language in there in regards to, that they know that, they double checking if they have an HOA or if they have neighborhood covenants that they reviewed, before going forward. I know that's not necessarily explicitly spelled out in the ordinance itself, so I don't know if that's just part of the application, but that's something that I'd like to bring up.
Yeah, I can tell council that was our plan. If we have application that we put that on there. I believe we do that with things like fence permits and things that are more common that might have HOA type of restrictions on there. Kevin probably knows better than I do, but I think we put that on a lot of different permit applications.
That's correct, Matt, Mayor and Council. We can add that right to the application pieces. And typically we do, because as Matt mentioned, HOAs are all over the place with fences. Obviously, we'll follow our rules, but we want to make sure that they know that there's several different layers that they need to consider on some of these items.
Okay, great. One other thing I'd like to just discuss as a group, is just the fee itself. I think a lot of feedback, obviously, as we all know, is that $100 seems excessive. I don't necessarily think the initial permit fee of $100 is an excessive item, especially with the initial administrative time and just having a CSO come out and inspect the property. I think number one, animal welfare should be, a high priority in regards to this. So I think that seems reasonable. But my own personal opinion is, if we do pass this, do we need to do $100 every single year? Or can it be $100 initially and then have it a reduced fee, for renewal? I think it incentivizes people to renew instead of just saying like, I don't want to pay that again, and kind of going off the grid with it, even if they still have chickens. And I think that if we lump them into a particular month, like they had asked for April to be kind of the start month and have it run as like all the permits expire March 31st and then they all have to be renewed April, that might cut down on the lagging administrative, time if we prorate new applications and such. So those are just kind of some of my comments in regards to the fee itself.
Yeah, Mayor and Council member, to me, this is more of a philosophical issue because certainly the administration of it, even on the renewal side of it, is going to, because of the fact that we actually have to go out and inspect these, it will cost more than $100. But what it actually costs and what we charge, they don't necessarily have to match. I can tell you that we would not be hiring additional people to go out and do this. This would be our CSOs that go out and do this. There's not additional expenses that we'd add for this. It really gets down to a philosophical question about, do we think that people who utilize different services should contribute more to what the actual cost of providing that service other than people who don't? See, some of the, beyond the inspections, so we have to pay, we pay obviously for our employees to do the inspections. We have the ones that actually process the licenses. And then, the big expense on animal control that a lot of people don't see is when we do get into an impound situation. So it costs the city to actually impound. Like if we have to impound a dog or if we have to impound a cat, we have to actually impound those in an offsite facility, which is an expense to the city. And that costs significantly more than $100 to do that. So I guess from a from a staff perspective, I think like I said, we're not adding additional costs into here. This really becomes a philosophical question for the council, a policy question of, this particular animal ordinance would be more than what we have to do for instance, dogs. So we don't go out and inspect dogs unless we have a complaint, and then we have to go there. This would be something that we would send people out, and also the impounded dogs. There's a lot more facilities that do that, and so there's more expense that goes towards that. So I guess my general response would be it's really up to the council about your philosophy towards that, but there is no additional cost just because of this.
Just a clarifying question for Councilmember Hubbard. You mentioned the April date renewals. Do you envision that that would be the only time someone could apply? So come summer, I want to do it, they'd have to wait till April? Just clarifying your statement there.
No, I guess where I was coming from was, you would prorate it. But if they all expired at the same time and they all were renewed during the same window, that it would ease and streamline the process for the CSO to inspect the coops that were coming up for renewal. I guess my thought process is not to negate, the idea that it doesn't, I'm sure it costs $100. And I guess I just saw a lot of people complaining about the fee. And my thought process is, we might have people that initially pay that $100, but they may not want to pay that every single year. And how do we strike a balance to make sure that, we have people paying the renewal fee, and that we're making sure animal welfare, is being kept up at the same time as making sure that we're covering our costs, because that is extremely important to me. So I just was trying to be, efficient in regards to maybe if they all expire at the same time, then it's a little bit of an easier process to renew and inspect.
Yeah, we would typically prorate the fee though. So like, the way we have it written now, so if somebody moved into the community in July or August, and if they wanted to have a chicken license, then we would start then, but we would prorate from the beginning of the year. So actually we wouldn't, even though we say in this that we're going to need till April to get sort of the application process in place, who we'd use as an impound facility, those types of things, we'd actually prorate it based on the first of the year. Because even if we did it this year, somebody's not going to get the benefit of the first 4 months of being able to have a chicken coop. So we wouldn't even charge the full fee for that first year.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Go ahead, Luke.
Whether you wanted a renewal and a change of amount for renewal, the ordinance as it is drafted, I think we should make some minor changes to it, because right now it just says the issuance of the license would be $100. It doesn't talk about renewal or anything like that. So I think if you pass the ordinance exactly where it is, as it is, you may have some people complaining, hey, you don't talk about a renewal or anything. It's just the issuance, and that's good for life.
Well, clarification, the license
So I
is
think
good. The license is good for.
A little bit.
I'm not sure, Luke, you kind of went digital there for a little bit, that last.
I'm getting the same thing. When Matt was just talking, it breaks up. To me, a literal interpretation as it's drafted now, the argument somebody could make is that the issuance is the first time. That's the issuance of it, and a renewal is something different from an issuance. And so let's just make it fair.
The license is only good for a year, though. So the issuance happens every year, but we could certainly clarify that. But the license has a year time frame to it.
It wouldn't take much to make it clear for anybody out there, I think. Okay, I hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Matt, you touched on something that either I missed in this conversation or I haven't asked. Impoundments for chickens, like where, I mean, I'm just dumbfounded a little bit, like where do those go? And I'm clearly, the way you nodded and smiled, like there are sites that
Yes.
will impound chickens. But I guess I don't really recall talking about that and where that's located and how convenient or inconvenient that is if someone has an impounded chicken.
Yeah, so it's not a whole lot different than impoundment of dogs or cats. So one of the reasons that we do go out and do the inspection each year is to make sure that those animals are in a safe condition. And if they weren't in a sanitary safe condition, we could move to impound them. Now there's a due process that we have to go through with that. But if we saw chronic issues of things popping up where an animal wasn't in a good condition, just like a dog, we could impound it. I know Nate's looked some at this, but like we use a kennel out of Shakopee for our dogs, and I believe they actually do chickens too. But that's one of the details that we'd have to be able to develop, because we don't have a facility to put a chicken if we had to impound it, and it needs to be put in a safe location. I do know that, some of the comments or discussion we've had is they tend to be obviously they're a little bit more rare than a dog impoundment, and they tend to be a little bit more expensive because, unlike dog impoundments, there's sort of two issues with chickens, is that people aren't necessarily looking for chickens. And the second one is that chickens introduced into new chickens cause issues with disease and stuff like that. So it's not, if you had to get to an impoundment, it's not as simple as it is with a dog.
Nate, can I ask, like in your research, I know we touched on at the work session if there were any like complaints, in regards issued for the other neighboring cities that have passed this ordinance and allowed chickens. Did you ask if there's been any impoundments that have happened? Because that, even if they didn't get a complaint, was it that, they checked it and the animal welfare situation was bad and they were impounded? Did you know of any?
I guess I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I don't recall that we came across that. Yeah. But it's something we'd have to be prepared to do if somebody was in unsanitary condition.
You still would have to have a contract with a company.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just curious because that's an interesting thought. Like, even if they didn't get a complaint from a neighbor, was it that they got checked on and that it just didn't meet, health and safety standards to have the chickens there?
I can tell you that based on other animal ordinances we have, typically they come in based on complaint.
Okay.
It typically doesn't get to the point where we're actually doing our annual inspection because they know we're coming. It's typically based on complaint that somebody might call in and say, hey, I see this dog or this cat, or in this case, this chicken looks like it's being mistreated or abused. And we do have those issues with cats and dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So if there was like someone had their chickens impounded and they either refused to pay or refused to remedy the situation, what happens to those chickens then?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. Nate, do you know?
No, I don't. I guess, as we're trying to figure out, I guess if we get to the point of needing to figure out a solution for chicken impoundment, we could ask them that question, but I don't know what the long-term trajectory is for unclaimed chickens. I could guess. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments from council?
I think it would be good to clarify the fee side of it, just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
I thought the fee was a little much as well. I think we're at times overcomplicating it a bit, but I think it's a good middle ground to allow it, since there are some people that just really have ill feelings about chickens. That it was kind of a give and take. I do think it's a lot like year over year for it, but I don't know if there would be a process where, you know, you pass a couple of years, you can, or if there's every other year, if there's some middle ground rather than $100 every year. But I did think, you know, that it was kind of in my conversations when with residents, they felt like in the people that really didn't want chickens, the thought was that, you know, the way the ordinance is, it's maybe over restrictive, but they felt that, okay, if we're going to have them, then at least there's that. So that's kind of my thought on it. I think it's kind of a lot per year too, but I think we're trying to find a middle ground for people that don't want them and people that do. So
yeah, I think there's different cities take different approaches to the fee, and like Matt said, it's sort of a philosophical thing about, you know, how much are you really trying to recover as far as staff time. There are cities who do just a lower flat fee every year. There are cities who do a slightly higher fee, but they might do it, you know, for a 2-year period or some, you know, multiple year period. And then there's other cities that follow a model where they might charge a higher fee for that first application, and then it's a lower renewal. You know, what the right number is, you know, from a staff perspective, I guess the reason we put the number forward was that it was our you know, our feeling that the number gets us close to actually recovering the staff time that we would anticipate going into, you know, administering this. That's not a requirement. You know, that's a philosophical decision by the council. And so, you know, you could choose to do something less than in any of those different types of models.
I have a quick question. So right now, that's, you know, the word on the street is that there's people who currently have chickens in Chaska illegally that are, you know, that are not in rural areas where it is legal to have chickens. So what's their strategy for if we chose to adopt this ordinance, given that there's already people who illegally have chickens today?
Well, it wouldn't be a whole lot different than how we deal with it at this point. Is, you know, right now, if we, most of the times that will come in from a complaint by a neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And if it comes in as a complaint by a neighbor and they have the chickens illegally, they're basically cited at that point that they need to get rid of the chickens. Mm-hmm. And it goes through a process then. So, you know, obviously if somebody, you know, if we pass a chicken ordinance and somebody chose not to get a license and then somebody reported them or we found out, we would provide them notice that they have to go through a permit process.
So is there then like a follow-up? Like, so if, you know, to make sure that they do, because they had a complaint and they said, no, screw it, I'm not going to do that. Yep. Then, you know, obviously then you'll continue following up until either they get a license and follow the correct protocols or they give up the chickens, one or the other.
And I don't know if that's happened in cases with chickens in Chaska, but I can tell you that that's not atypical to how we deal with any of our ordinances, is that it's a process, and that you first get a warning, usually get a second warning, then you get a citation. Some people ignore the citation, and so then it goes to court. And I mean, if there's a process, there's a whole process that we go through that, you know, only the people who are actually going through it actually usually see it, other than us. But you know, there are some people with any ordinance in the community. It's just a handful, but it doesn't matter how many notices you give them, they won't comply. And those typically end up in court.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
All right, anyone else have a comment? Otherwise, I'm going to see if there's anyone that wants to speak for or against chickens that are in our audience. But I do wanna, I'm gonna limit the activity to no more than 3 minutes. If someone is speaking, and if the topic's already been discussed, I just assume not have that come back again. So we're not saying the same thing time after time. So, and if there's a group here that somebody wants to have a spokesperson talk for them, that's fine as well. But so with that, I'm going to open it up if there's anyone that has a comment, pro or con versus the ordinance for allowing chickens.
All right, Mr. Mayor, we have John Pranz who's raised his hand. Shall we allow him to unmute? John Pranz, if you want to unmute, you can speak now.
Hi, John.
Oh, we can't hear you, John. Oh, where'd he go?
He's there.
There he is. Okay, now I'm going to try to unmute you again. You're still muted, John.
Say something.
No.
No.
May you want to try to remove your headset and go to your speakers on your computer. You know, unplug your headset.
Okay.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Thanks for providing me a brief opportunity to comment. My primary concern, I understand the interest in chickens and the educational aspect of it and the novelty and so forth. My primary concern is in denser neighborhoods where lots are a third of an acre, having a chicken coop in a backyard is really a situation that I think will have an adverse impact on property values. So that's really my main concern. I have some secondary concerns about attracting predators and bird transmitted diseases. But if the council is set on approving this ordinance, I've made some requests that the council consider amending the ordinance to also address the situation of land covenants. City of Waconia has a section in theirs called private restrictions and covenants, which make what I believe the city of Chaska's intent is to have the ordinance be not take precedent over land covenants and HOAs. In some land covenants in the city of Chaska, there are sometimes a clause that states that an ordinance would take precedent over the land covenant for reasons of building and zoning and things of that nature. If it is the council's intent to clearly have bird restrictions that may be in land covenants or HOAs take precedent over the ordinance itself, it would be, I think, beneficial to make a statement similar to the Waconia ordinance in the Chaska ordinance. And then my final comment is that if a chicken coop is going to be constructed in such a tight area where it's very visible from a neighbor's windows or so forth, that you also give some consideration to the building and construction standards. The city has always had high building standards for commercial and residential, and I would hate to see a piecemeal chicken coop constructed over leftover materials or painted an unsightly color of bright pink or yellow, which makes it even stand out more. So my suggestion would be something simply saying that the construction of the chicken coop should be made of similar materials and colors of the owner's residence.
Okay. Matt, do you we kind of had a little conversation about that a little bit.
Yeah, so, like I had mentioned, well, first of all, any individual covenant or HOA rules or covenants do take precedent over city ordinance. Those are basically, as a homeowner purchases those properties, they're basically signing on to that they're agreeing to have rules above and beyond the city ordinances. So that goes without saying. Now, speaking specifically to the language in the ordinance itself, is it something you can do? Yes. This is something we had a discussion with our attorney, Larry Harris, regards to the Waconia ordinance itself. From a standard, like I said, we put on our applications that somebody has to check with their association to make sure that they're in compliance with it. The issue with putting in language that says that somebody's, basically Waconia's ordinance says that if for some reason we find out that somebody's built a chicken coop in an area that the covenants don't allow it, that chicken coop or that permit would become void. The problem is that we have to go through a due process to actually do that, just like we'd have to go through a due process to actually impound something. So it's not just as simple as staff just getting something from a neighbor saying, here's the covenants that are on their property. They're not allowed to have it. You need to pull that permit. We actually have to give them due process to go through that. Not all association documents are extremely clear. Some people can make interpretations about what something means, and we have to be able to give due process. And we certainly can do that. But one of the things I think gets to be sort of a dangerous precedent here is we've never got involved in enforcing private covenants. And I think it's a slippery slope to go down because they are not our rules to enforce. They're the rules of the HOA. They're the rules of the covenants on the house, and we're trying to interpret and enforce something that's not our rule. Can we do it? Yes, but it can't be done without a due process. And that due process, a lot of times what it means is them coming in front of council and making a case about, here's why I don't think you should pull that permit.
Matt, may I just comment briefly?
Sure.
Certainly, my intent is not to put the city into a position of advocating one way or the other in a conflict over between two homeowners or whatever. My main thing is that there are some covenants within the city that have language that state that the ordinance would take precedent over the covenant. And the reason that's in there is because some ordinance having to do with safety and security and other zoning things, the builder or the property, the real estate developer didn't want to have covenants that would be in conflict with the city. So if the city's intent is to truly honor or be clear that this ordinance doesn't take precedent over existing covenants, some language to that effect would be, I think, very beneficial.
That's actually a more complicated issue for us because we can't give away somebody's rights that are given to them under city ordinance. So if their covenants are saying that they have the right, or that city ordinance supersedes covenant, we get into a due process issue of if the court comes and says, your ordinance allows this, their covenant says that the city ordinance is going to supersede the covenants. Now, if we come and take that right away, we're actually going counter to what their private covenants would say. And an argument could be made is that they're not given the rights that are guaranteed them under their private covenants. And that's a real challenge when we get into these private covenant discussions, is that they're not our rules. And for us to go in and be in an interpretation of those rules really puts the city in a precarious place of what intent is, what these rules are there for, how many people even care about them. That's why we've typically stuck to just putting it on a permit to say, you as a homeowner need to take responsibility to be able to go and see, do my private covenants or does my association allow me to do this? And make sure that they do that before they come and actually seek a permit for a fence or seek a permit for a chicken, that it really has to become that private homeowner's responsibility to do that, so that we don't get caught in the center of these issues between that are really private matters.
I totally understand, Matt. Thank you. I appreciate your position. When I purchased my property 10 years ago, I understood that there were covenants that ran with the land and I'd be responsible for those. What I never anticipated is that 10 years later, the city would approve an ordinance putting farm animals on a small lot next to me. And I just think that I understand the educational aspects and the novelty again of raising chickens, but individuals with small lots could make an arrangement with a hobby farm to get the same experience and not have it wind up right in the backyard, encroaching on someone else's property and thereby making property values degrade. So that's my thought. With that, I'll just shut up and listen to the rest of the comments.
All right, thanks, John. Appreciate it. All right, Mike, is there anyone else?
No one's raising their hand, although we do have, let me see here, Brady, Busselman.
If they're not raising their hand, we got a bunch of other items. They could be here for that.
Yep, we're good to go then.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, if there's no one else here to speak about anything, I think it comes time that we need to make that decision moving forward. So if I don't know if somebody's got a comment they want to make or anything or beforehand.
Yeah, Mayor, I'll make a comment. I just actually have a great appreciation for this topic and the fact that the due diligence, the word that Matt used, due diligence and due process. I think as a council, I think we should be proud of the fact that we've looked at this a lot of different angles. We've educated ourselves, some through this meeting, some on our own. We've talked to others, and really taken it seriously, right? So I really want to, express that to the community who's listening, because this has been taken very seriously. We've looked at it very closely, several work sessions and conversations. And then I've spent time talking to neighbors and people send emails and all that type of thing. So I just want to commend the council and the city administration for doing the work, and the city officials for doing the work to kind of get a draft ordinance. I just think to me, this is kind of a good demonstration of government and local government and what it means. The other thing I can't help but not think about is, we did interviews for commission positions. And the question I was always asking was, tell me about a time you disagreed with someone and how you worked through it, right? So I've asked that question. I forget how many we had, seven people tonight. And so this really comes up to that, right? Because I think there is going to be disagreement among us. I think there's going to be a disagreement among this community. And I think it's an appreciation that we respected each other, we listened to each other, we had open ideas, we learned along the way. We didn't make, personally, I can speak for myself, I didn't make any assumptions about the process, but just kind of recognizing that, there are times where we disagree, and that's healthy government at times. And I think we've approached this decision and this process that is a healthy conversation for the community. And I just wanted to thank the council, thank the city, and thank the individuals who took their time to write, call, reach out via email, all those types of things. Because as a topic of chickens in Chaska, I think we've really demonstrated kind of a good, sound process in that. So I just wanted to kind of commend everyone and say that.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll say something. This is, oddly enough, it's been one of those topics that was surprisingly heated on both sides. There's people who are incredibly passionate about having chickens, wanting chickens. They're very, they've taken a lot of time to educate themselves, to learn about chickens, to really to advocate on behalf of this as a hobby, something that they want to do. And on the flip side, there's many people who feel just absolutely appalled by the idea of chickens and having chickens in their backyards, or even living near someone who has chickens. And both sides are very passionate, just as passionate on one side as they are on the other. There's people in between, obviously. But, I wanted to take some time to really kind of educate myself about this. So the Stogners were, who live in a farm in the outskirts of Chaska, made an open invitation to council. I took them up on the offer and spent some time out there to understand and to learn about chickens and raising chickens, and in conjunction with some other people who shared information. There's definitely a whole range of, ways people take care of chickens. Some people are really very diligent, keep their chickens in their garage and keep them warm all winter, and treat them as like a prized family pet. Take care of fleas, take care of like any diseases, things like that. Other people are kind of on a different end of the spectrum, which are all still considered, humane, right? Say, well, if they have fleas, they get fleas as chickens do in the wild. We just, we take care of them. We just feed them scraps. It's a very, or maybe just straight chicken feed. Vaccinations, things like that. Well, we don't worry about it because it's isolated coop, and it varies on the spectrum depending upon which, what chicken owners decide to do. There's an interesting conundrum though, which, and I also live in a community that's affected by the covenants too. And I think that the challenge I have here is that the more I educate myself about chickens, the more I come to realize the issue isn't about chickens. The issue is about how do we deal with an issue where people feel very polarized about this issue. And one of the things that's really troubling about it is that, for example, in my neighborhood, we don't have a homeowners association. So that means there's no central payment or billing that goes to another group to enforce any codes or standards. But what we do have is we do have covenants. And unfortunately, the covenants are very explicit. Calling out chickens by name is not allowed in our neighborhood. And one of the things that's challenging is that enforcement of the covenants isn't done by the police. It's not done, it's effectively done through civil litigation. So that means that if someone were to have chickens in my neighborhood versus in a neighborhood further away, or maybe not further away, in a different neighborhood that wasn't subject to covenants, what this would become is it would become a civil suit that would effectively result in one homeowner effectively placing a court lien against another homeowner. Now, heaven forbid that should happen, because that's certainly, a really bad situation. But it could come to that by a violation of covenants, that someone could put a lien and say, I'm going to take away your house because you refuse to get rid of your chickens. And to me, that really bothers me that, more than anything is that there's covenants out there, there's different HOAs out there that have similar policies around enforcement of those things in those HOAs and in those covenants, which means that, there's a fairly substantial population in Chaska who either can't have chickens because they're in some sort of high density residential, like either an apartment complex or condominiums, or they're in housing that is subject to covenants or HOAs that don't allow chickens. And that becomes an issue where if someone says, well, I'm going to have chickens anyway, and they have an issue with their neighbor has a legal right to, effectively try to threaten taking away their housing. And that's a pretty serious thing. And it's not necessarily something that I think would go very far, very often, but it certainly doesn't encourage a real community building kind of environment. And then that's something that concerns me. It's something to me that feels very unresolved. That said, that's probably my biggest concern is the fact that there's a lot of not gray area, but there's a lot of issues that make this kind of a unhappy compromise for both sides, right? Where the people who want chickens feel like it's too arduous, too restrictive, too many hoops to jump through, too expensive. And then the people who don't want chickens feel like, well, they could still do it, and then I'm forced to enforce it on my own, or, now that it's still next to me, I've got to live with it. And it's it's not a great situation on both sides. And that's what troubles me. So I've been on the fence for this for a while, and the more I dig into it, the more it's a challenging. I find it oddly challenging on this one.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'll just chime in briefly. I think, it just like I said, I had some conversations. I have personal friends who live in communities not that different than ours that live next to chickens, and when you can just sit down and have a conversation and talk about it, more often than not, they're going to come to kind of a point where they're like, yeah, I guess it's not that big of a deal. I mean, property values, any home that's not kept, any yard that's not kept is going to bring down a property value. With this ordinance, it's so restrictive as it is right now, that would be very unlikely that a poorly kept chicken coop would be what's bringing down the property value, especially in a market like we have right now. As far as predators, like talking through these things, there's a stray cat at my old house that's lived for 7 years and directed no predators that I have ever seen, things like that. So it's when you can talk through those, 9 out of, let's say 90% of the people I talk to about this could come to the conclusion that yes, with how we have the ordinance as it stands, they would be okay once we could talk through it, and talk about what other animals do we already have amongst us, dogs and cats. As far as diseases, the rabbits in your backyard can pass fleas to your animals far easier than a chicken would, things like that. So that was just kind of the conclusion, and actually having conversations was that it maybe wasn't as big of a deal when we could just talk about it and talk about what's the realistic look at chickens living amongst us. So that was the conclusion I came to when having those conversations.
Okay, thank you.
I guess it's my turn to throw in my comments in regards to this topic. I think like we've all shared, we all did a lot of due diligence and research in regards to this topic. And I echo a lot of Councilmember Hatfield's thoughts. I also have in the back of my mind Councilmember Wong's thoughts in regards to HOA and covenants. I'm one of those people that lives under an HOA. My residents wouldn't apply to this type of situation. I want to make sure that, when I make these sort of decisions, even though it doesn't apply to me and impact me directly, I take very careful consideration, and I'm a researcher at heart. One of my methods of researching this was, there's that common fear of the unknown, right? Like we don't have chickens currently, or like you said, Mike, there's some word on the street is there's some, but it's not official unless you live in the Greenbelt. So I looked to the communities that had passed this ordinance and really reached out to those members to really see And I got no complaints from people that lived next door, and, you know, people complaining. And, you know, if anything, it was a joyous thing to them. And I realize that not everybody's going to share that sentiment. So I only say that in the sense of, you know, I just didn't get any negative feedback from the communities that have already passed it. I realize that our community is not a copycat, you know, carbon stamp of other communities. And, you know, I really want to make sure that, you know, what's good for Chaska, what's good for Chaska as a whole, the quality of life. You can have a counter argument, I feel like, to everything that we've kind of presented. You know, Councilmember Wong brought up HOAs. What about the people that don't live under a covenant or don't live under an HOA? How do they feel about the restrictions being placed? Because we have other ones that do. You know, there's an opposite side to everything that we've discussed. And the one thing I thought was really interesting was my business is in a neighboring community that allows chickens. And I was driving to the post office, and they have the same city block setup as Chaska, you know, the smaller residential lots in town, older homes. And I was like, out of the corner of my eye, I caught some structure, and I paused, and it was a chicken coop. And it was a chicken coop right there, right on the, you know, corner lot of a small city block. And it was small, it was cute, and it was just very inconspicuous. And, you know, on a much smaller lot requirement that, you know, we're requiring, even with the setbacks and things, I think, you know, you'd have to have a bigger lot in order to kind of make that happen. And I kind of just point to that, like, you know, we have this sort of sometimes picture in our head, if we don't know something, that's going to be really gross and ugly. And when I looked at that coop, it was quaint. And I'm not to say that everyone's going to do that. And, you know, but I don't know. I just feel like some of these, you know, discussions, I don't want to pit neighbors against neighbors. I don't want neighbors taking neighbors to court, but I also feel like, you know, as one of our commissioners says, you know, neighboring well. I think having communications with neighbors, I think is, you know, part of this deal. And I think that the way that the ordinance is set up, we have the restrictions in place to make sure it's done well. It's an investment. Somebody that's walking into it with having the building materials and all the requirements isn't gonna, I think, do a really, you know, cheap job at making it happen. Animal welfare is really important to me in regards to this too. So I think having the, you know, all the details in place to make sure that the animals are cared for, because, you know, just like dogs and cats, we want to ensure that those animals are well cared for. And so that's kind of where I lean in regards, and just like, even, you know, reaching out to the police and to our sheriffs, you know, Carver County Sheriff, and just knowing that there's no complaints that have happened. I think some of it's fear driven. I understand the idea though, you know, property values, feeling like your property values went down. But when I saw that coop, seeing that small city lot, and just how unassuming it really was, you know, it really kind of set a tone for me as far as kind of moving forward.
Okay. Thanks. You were done, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Well, I guess this is my second time through this. We went through this back a number of years ago. And looked at the process and had a few work sessions on it. And what I noticed was there was a small group of people that were in favor of it. But then when we had the work session to decide about moving it forward, there was no one there. And and the council at that point all kind of said the same thing, that there's not enough momentum here to say that we should move it forward if there's no one here at this meeting. So now this time around, we've spent a lot of time. I mean, we really have. We've had multiple work sessions, you know, this has all been stated already before. And we've looked into a lot of different things. We've looked at it a lot of different ways. And here we are tonight. and there's no one here again at the meeting to talk in favor of supporting the ordinance. And I don't know, at some point, do we have to look at, and I get it that there are people that really have the people that were interested in it truly had a passion. There's no doubt that the passion was there, that they wanted that. But again, I struggle with bringing farm animals into the city. And I mean, and we always talk about, well, we got cats and we got issues with dogs and we got all that. So why, I don't understand, why do we want to bring another type of animal in and have possibly, I don't know that. I mean, I agree. Most of the things I've heard is that there hasn't been any, but what happens down the road? I mean, when it started, people used to have one dog and they were probably an inside dog. And now you got people that have 3 to 5 dogs, even though that's illegal. But I know that there are people out there that have that. I mean, and look at the waste that we're finding on trails and along roadsides. And I just don't see enough interest, the fact that no one's here, that this really needs to move any further. I will tell you that I will not support this, as it just doesn't feel that we need to put this, add this additional thing when there's really not that much interest out there. I mean, it started off early that there was a large petition, but as things went on, it really boiled down to, are we doing all this for, and I'm probably stretching it, but no more than 6 to a dozen households in the city. To me, I think that I agree with Councilmember Graw that we've put a lot of time and effort in it. We've certainly done this, and I think it was important that we needed to look through the whole process and look at this as a whole. But look at the comments as we put it out there and had the conversations. More people are not supportive of doing it than there were supportive of it. So, I mean, it's not a poll in any way, shape, or form, but I don't understand why we would approve this when more people are saying that they're not in favor of it. Don't do it. I mean, it's one thing if it was in place and we're removing it, but this isn't in place. And there's nothing that says 5 years down the road that this doesn't get revisited and it can be re-looked at. But I at this point, I cannot support it. There is just not enough, to me, there's absolutely not enough interest to move this process forward. So that's my 2 cents on it. So last call. If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I did see someone's hand raised as you were speaking. I'm not sure if that person.
Yeah, I saw Zachary Bartley raise his hand and then he unraised it. Now it looks like it's raised again. So he's.
Well, we've asked for public comment. I think, I mean, if we, I don't, you know, I'm gonna allow it, but that's gonna be the last one. So I'll go with that.
Okay, your name's Zachary Bartley.
Hi, this is Kristen Bartley. I started this petition 5 years ago, and I'm revisited this again this year. Back 5 years ago when this happened, there wasn't, sorry, I wasn't expecting to speak right now, so I'm a little nervous, but I didn't know about that working session that the mayor was talking about. And I found out about it after, and Greg Bowe had sent me a message saying, hey, I hope you were here. You would have been here for this. And I wish I would have as well. Greg Bowe he was in complete support of it 5-6 years ago when I had came. And I completely disagree that there has not been a lot of positive feedback from the community. If I put things on Facebook, multiple pages, next door, amazing conversation, good and bad. I loved it all. I'm obviously for it. And I have a lot of people that are for it. And as you can see tonight, I guess there aren't a lot of people here for it or against it. So you could see that in both ways. So I kind of disagree what was just said, but I do want to thank everyone for their hard work with doing their research. I know I did mine, but you know, obviously everyone wants to do their own, and you know, your staff was amazing. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And like I said, I'm just going by my comments because I had more, my comments to me were more, please don't approve it than I did call. I mean, I even had a conversation with someone and my phone number, my picture, my email were all put on Facebook to say, hey, call him. He's not in favor of it. And I got 3, 4, and 2 against. And my against was way stronger even before that. So, I mean, so those are my opinions. I don't know. That's what I base it on. So, but thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like the ordinance that, you know, there's some extremes with it, but it really protects the animals and the neighbors. It really does. It really does. If you have those ordinances in place, then, you know, it shouldn't be that hard. And it's just something that can be spoken about with any animals that you're having issues with, if there are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I guess I just want to really quick, with all due respect, Mayor, I think if history's taught us anything, that the loudest doesn't necessarily mean that's what's right. And that just people present or not present. I think we've all done a lot of research, and if you go to a very common Chaska Facebook group, there was a post with 80 some comments with only 1 negative. So I guess I'd be careful to say that just because someone's being loud now means that it represents a whole.
Well, I mean, that's anything we do. We'll never know. I mean, anytime we talk about something, whenever the decision's made, then there's a lot of conversations. And there are conversations out there, but I'm personally not seeing that there's that much support there, and to go through all of the things, and even now, as you know, we put out a proposed ordinance, and most people have disagreed with our ordinance, and so you know that this ordinance isn't done, and if we approve this, then we'll probably be revisiting that ordinance in the next 3 months, because once we approve it, then we'll, you know, if it's approved, then I just see that we'll get more comments, and we'll be back at this and taking more valuable staff time. When, I mean, personally, right now, like I said, I think it was a valuable conversation to have. I think it was important, and I think we've done as much as we can possibly do. But you know, right now, I think that we have other things that are out there that are really important. We got very, very large projects out there right now that are taking staff time up, versus are we going to spend it on something like adding a chicken ordinance? I don't know. Though that's, again, it's my opinion and it's everyone's opinion, but that's why we have 5 different people here to make those decisions. So, and that's the way that I look at it. Because like I said, this is my second time around on it. This is the way I feel about it. So, all right. Anyone else?
Nope, no one else.
All right. No, I was talking council, but is someone willing to make a motion?
I gotta pull it up. I'm sorry. Hold on. I don't have my thing. Did it steal? Sorry. If someone else has it, technology is
I
failing
can do
me.
it. I can do it. So I'd make a motion to adopt ordinance MC 2021-984, a chicken article to the animal and fowl chapter.
Thanks, John. I'll second that by Hubbard.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Graw, second by Councilmember Hubbard to adopt ordinance MC 2021-984. Discussion.
I guess I just want to like point to, my comments weren't to try to, influence or change any other council member's mind. I think this all comes down to perspective. And this jokingly, and I wrote this in an email to one of the gentlemen that is on here tonight, Mr. Prozinski. This is probably like the hardest vote that I've had to make since my time on this council, which I know might sound silly, but I do want people to know that, it is a very passionate and diligent, process to go through. So I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and I'll throw something out there too. Like this, I would also agree with Councilmember Hubbard that this is probably, oddly enough, one of the most difficult votes too for me, just because there's like so many really unexpected facets of it that go beyond just the black and white issues of chickens themselves. Like I said, I have nothing against chickens. I think as pets and things like that, but my concern are really about the interpersonal dynamics of our community and our neighborhood, and from people who I spoke with, at least people who reached out to me, the vast majority of the ones who I heard from were very much had a lot of discomfort around this, or not even more beyond discomfort. A lot of them grew up on farms or were adamantly against it, and so it's a very odd issue, but I feel that in this particular case, I need to make sure that I'm looking at this from that perspective of and answering that question of like, as a community, is it the right thing for us now? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's a very subjective kind of question, and that's probably what makes it so difficult in that sense, which is really odd. I mean, something like a building, which we'll be talking about later, is a lot more black and white, is a lot more a line in the sand. This one's definitely a lot more nuance to it, which is really odd because it impacts people personally with their neighbors next to each other. If one chooses to have chickens and the other one doesn't want chickens, right? Then that creates opportunity for conflict. And that's a very odd sort of challenge.
Yeah, I echo those words as well. I do. That is a concern of mine, and I get Councilmember Hubbard's point about what about the people that don't. But we have more than 70% of the people live under covenants, and we have to look out for that 70% as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can create some serious issues. And going back to Councilmember Hatfield's about all the chat rooms, I've also seen on the chat rooms that about the coyotes that we're seeing, and to say that it doesn't draw predators. You can talk to the gentleman that had chickens for 13 years, and he will confirm that it definitely does draw predators. So that is another concern of mine, that the coyotes have been, and we have so much wooded area that we're not going to move them out, but it's just, to me, it just seems like we're adding more habitat for them to become more visual in the residential areas, and that makes me nervous. So just wanted to rebut a couple comments. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
The motion on the floor is the ordinances as is printed in front of you. So if anybody wants to make some minor changes to that, which would, help them maybe effectuate or people to vote for it in favor or for it. But it's as drafted. That's what's on the floor today.
So if then there's changes, then it has to come back to the council and then they have to be amended.
Right.
Do we need to talk about the renewal piece?
I'll just throw this out. To me, this is the tough decision, whether you do it or not. The easy decision is, the easy stuff is to come back and deal with the details later. So I wouldn't necessarily get hung up on that side of it.
Okay. I was thinking that, but it's just the fact that it's just more time that.
I mean, unless people want to change it, I mean, obviously it's your prerogative, but I just wanted to throw it out there that, you know, the tough decision is a decision whether to do it or not.
Right.
You know, the amendments are, you know, if you guys don't feel comfortable with something as we get closer to implementation, we can change it. That's not a big deal.
Okay. Any last comments? All right, so we have a motion and a second. So we are voting, you would be voting yes in favor, and no would be to say no to the ordinance. So is that correct, Luke? Is that how we
Correct.
do that? This is just a yes or no?
Yep.
You don't have to come back again, right? Okay. All right. All right. I gotta get my roll call sheet here. Tabulated. All right. Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Wong,
Nay.
Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Grau,
Nay.
Mayor Winchell, nay. The way I read it, it fails 3-2. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. And we will now move on to item.
Reminder, we're gonna do visitor presentation.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Which
I
one?
haven't. I just saw that. Is there anyone on here that's here for visitor presentation?
I'm looking and I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the reminder again, John. I just got to that and I saw that too. So, all right, we move now to 7B, adopt resolution 2021-3 and ordinance 986 approving preliminary plat and rezoning of Harvest West Third Tradition Development.
Mayor and Councilmember, the item in front of you tonight is for the Harvest West Third Edition. So it's also being called the Harvest West North. So this is a preliminary plat and rezoning. We do have Liz here to go over the presentation. One thing I will point out is this is one that originally came to the December Planning Commission meeting. There was some concerns with a retaining wall. And I will say that the applicant took some pretty big efforts between December and January to change that, which Liz will talk about, which were pretty significant changes which impacted it. So this is coming, being recommended from the Planning Commission, and I'll turn it over to Liz.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, members of the council and Mr. Mayor. I'm going to share my screen here. Can we all see that?
Yep. Oh, I can. I think we can all.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. So as Matt stated, we have a preliminary plat and rezoning application or request in tonight for the Harvest West Third, which was also known as Harvest West North when it came in for concept plan approval. Oops. So the site that we're looking at tonight is highlighted in red on this aerial exhibit. So the southern side of Harvest West was approved in subsequent or earlier years. So we're looking at the full completion and extension of the Harvest West neighborhood on the north side now. So this would be the full completion of this neighborhood. So to give you some bearings, we have the Harvest on the east side of Savannah Way. Savannah Way is kind of the dissecting element from kind of the east and west sides that's why we call this area the Harvest West, because it's on the west side of Savannah Way. Highway 212 is on its western border. County Road 44 is on the south side. And then we have Creek Road kind of on the north side with some additional residential properties. So background wise, in terms of approvals that have already occurred, so the concept plan for the southern side was approved back in March of 2018. Final plats of that were approved in both 2019 and 2020. The concept plan for this area that we're looking at tonight was approved in July of 2020. And then as Matt mentioned, they did come back with their initial preliminary plat and rezoning application that was reviewed at the December 9th Planning Commission meeting. And at that meeting, they made a motion to table the item so that the applicant could further work on some details for retaining walls that were proposed as a part of that layout. There were concerns with drainage, the overall design, the safety components of it, and generally speaking, hoping to downsize kind of the overall scope of those retaining walls because they were quite large in height, ranging from 23 feet in height to 25 feet in height on certain perimeters. So there were a lot of concerns around that. So they asked the applicant to look at that further and provide further details. So now they came back in January with the Planning Commission with the revised layout and design, and that's what we're showing tonight. So a couple of the changes that they made since their initial December 9th Planning Commission review, they did downsize the amount of lots that are proposed for this development. So 27 lots were eliminated on mainly the east side of the development itself. So they initially proposed 119 lots, which was consistent with their concept plan approval. So they decided to eliminate 27 lots, which brought them down to a 92 lot proposal, which was mainly on the northeasterly side. So the west side didn't get touched. It was mainly what was happening on the east side, which is where a lot of the steep topography occurs. And one of the cul-de-sacs was reduced in length by a significant amount, 18 lots, to really kind of downsize the overall impact on that area. So I'm going to kind of skip through a little bit. So as a result of that, they were able to eliminate those major concerns that were brought up in the Planning Commission meeting, which resulted in eliminating these large retaining walls in the rear yards of those cul-de-sacs, which was the big concern. So with this new layout tonight, the retaining walls are almost non-existent. Where the concerns were. There are still retaining walls proposed around some preserved trees, and that's about it to help maintain the preservation of those trees. But the significant ones that were showcased in December 9th are no longer being proposed.
So Liz,
Yeah.
can I, is that the cul-de-sac that parallels Savannah Way? Is that where that got changed? Because I'm not really sure exactly.
Yeah, I
Kinda
can go
had an
to
idea.
the site exhibit here, and I should have showed the original design, but for simplicity, I didn't. But essentially, this orange cul-de-sac was extended all the way to kind of the same limits as the green one. So as a result of that, there's a really steep grade change between the green and the orange, essentially. So they needed a retaining wall in the rear yards to sustain that, essentially. And then with the extension of this cul-de-sac here, they also needed a retaining wall abutting the stormwater pond and wetland to kind of create these usable lots. So they've really cut that back so that there's no longer a need for a retaining wall in between these lots.
Well, talking that kind of height of walls, that had to be an expensive operation for those lots to put all that in.
Yeah,
and expensive to maintain.
Right.
Exactly. And that was kind of one of the reasons why the developer has strayed away from that design, is from the expense component. It is a very expensive venture, both in the construction, but also in the maintenance side of things. And I think that was another reason they decided to kind of opt away from that overall design.
Great
So
comp-
what was that?
I said it was a great compromise.
Yep, I think the Planning Commission was very pleased with that overall change. And I think the developer is also happy with that change where they don't have to worry about the overall management of that. So in turn, I think they're very comfortable and excited for this newer layout that we have tonight. Just another change with kind of what was initially submitted, and hence straying away from a retaining wall need, is they did change the type of lots or home products that they were proposing out there. So again, the west side didn't necessarily get changed layout or home style wise. It was mainly on the east side. So on the east side cul-de-sacs, they were proposing a smaller lot house product, which was their manor marketed house product. So these were smaller lots, which in turn kind of created that larger need for a retaining wall. But they've since changed the manor lots to the heritage lots, which is kind of their normal medium-sized product. And then where the heritage lots were before, they changed those to their tradition lots, which is their largest house in lot product that they've offered across the street, across Savannah Way. And again, the change to that was to kind of allow these larger lots to abut the public park area. And they also get a bigger return revenue wise on these larger lots as well. So it just made sense financially to make that change. So again, we're looking at a preliminary plat request tonight for 92 lots. So how that breaks down is 57 of those will be kind of their traditional single family, which is their tradition and heritage lots is the way they market them. And then 35 of those are the detached villas, which are currently on the south, or the initial phases that they've done in this development. So those are kind of their detached townhome product. They are owner occupied, but they kind of read and feel as kind of a detached townhome. And that's oriented on the west side, which I'll specifically point out in that site plan again. And then secondly, they're asking for a rezoning tonight from the open zoning district to a planned residential district, specifically PRD 77. Just in terms of existing conditions, which I'm kind of, whatever's highlighted in purple here is what we're kind of talking about tonight, is the subject area. So that area encompasses about 48 acres. It's mainly open farmland. There's 3 wetlands on the site. Kind of the ones on the perimeters on both east and west sides will be, for the most part, incorporated. There are some impacts due to the road and development itself, and then a smaller one that will be completely impacted as a result of this development, and they're working towards mitigation on those. 2 major street frontages off of Savannah Way and then Highway 212. Highway 212 has a large berm on this edge that's already in place, so that will remain as a part of this. And then also there's a significant grove of oak trees kind of situated in the center of this development. So really the intention of the layout was to help protect these trees, which they're planning to do. And then just want to point out that there is a public park just kind of nestled into this purple area, but will be kind of the center of the overall development that was platted with the initial phases. So that's a 12-acre park. So they are planning to kind of extend a conservation area to that to help preserve those trees in the center and provide kind of a conservation area. A couple other things that were brought up during the concept plan that I just want to mention. So the westerly cul-de-sac that was proposed, there were a couple of trees on the perimeter shown in kind of this upper right exhibit and picture here, that we wanted to make sure were going to be preserved in their full extent as they came forward for preliminary. So they did engage a tree arborist to evaluate all of the trees, but specifically the ones that are kind of on these perimeters to ensure that they are being maintained and sustained through the development. And they didn't have any concerns with what was being proposed. They offered some insight onto how to best preserve them through the construction with silt fencing around the drip line and some retaining walls too. So there weren't any concerns brought up by the arborist with the preservation of these trees. And the plans do reflect kind of the comments that were brought about during in the arborist's report. And then secondly, there were a couple lots that were adjacent to the wetland on the east side and adjacent to Savannah Way here that kind of butt up against the wetland edge and its buffer area. And it just showed that these lots were very tight. So we wanted the applicant to kind of take a look at these 4 lots in particular that were kind of squeezed in here. So this is no longer a concern with this new layout. The lots proposed don't encroach into this wetland area like it did in the concept plan. So that's no longer a concern. So here's the proposed site plan. So again, the colored areas make up 92 lots. The cottage lots are all of the lots on the western cul-de-sac here. So this will be an extension off of the existing development to the south off of Harvest Trail. It'll end in a cul-de-sac. So when we say cottage lots, these are the detached townhome product, which will be both the front-loaded and side-loaded garage type housing product. Again, these are already housing products that are being built on the south side. And this will just be a natural extension of that housing product on the west. And then secondly, they'll be proposing the tradition lots, 30 of those, and this inner easterly cul-de-sac here, which would be an extension off of Timber Arch Drive and end in a cul-de-sac. And there will be so this is their larger lot and house product that they've utilized or implemented in the east side on their existing development. So this will be the lots kind of on this inner easterly cul-de-sac butting up to the park and the conservation area kind of in the center here. And then the heritage lots are kind of that medium-sized product, 66-foot wide lots. Will be on the outer cul-de-sac off of Red Cedar Drive. So again, you can see kind of the shorter cul-de-sac here with the stormwater pond and then a wetland between the pond and the collector road, Savannah Way. So there is a main access proposed. Yeah.
Again, quick question. So with this retention pond here, where was that before when it was the full cul-de-sac back? Where did that?
So it was kind of squeezed into the same area
Okay.
on kind of the northeasterly side here. So it was kind of more elongated than what's being shown now. So it's essentially in the same spot, but now it's just more spread out as opposed to kind of being more linear before.
Okay, thanks.
So again, the main access to this area will be off of the Collector Road on Savannah Way. It'll line up with Farm Hill Boulevard, which is an additional entrance into the east side. So that'll kind of carry through into this development and provide a nice linear path into the additional park entrance for the public park. And then all these other streets will just continue and then end in cul-de-sacs. And then as you can see, both sides end in cul-de-sacs to be able to provide kind of this conservation corridor area, which essentially preserves those significant oak trees in the center there. So this was definitely a good layout move on the developer's part to really make this an amenitized area for the people utilizing the park and having homes that back up against it.
Hey, Liz, just clarifying question on here.
Yep.
It's supposed to be a city park, not a neighborhood park. So I'm thinking of like access. So you just commented there on the access of Savannah Way kind of being the access to the city park. Now, city park to be determined, could be just a green space, could be a park, you know, that type of thing. Is there an exit? You said additional entrances. I'm just not seeing, of course, the park's just a big space right now, so it's kind of hard to see, but is there other ways to, in theory, access that city park?
Yes, so we have a couple other options, some that have already been platted as a part of the earlier phases. So we have Vista View Drive, which was the initial entrance into the Harvest West, just to the south there, which also shows a similar approach into the development with a larger park opening there. And then there will be a smaller inlet between a couple lots on the south side of Harvest Trail. And then they're going to propose another opening on the north side of that westerly cul-de-sac into the conservation corridor area. And then an additional corridor access on this inner easterly cul-de-sac. So there will be 5 total entrances.
So there's no, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
So there's no trails annotated for where those would connect to for the 3 new entrances, because I see that on the southern portion, there's actually some trails connecting with like play areas and things like that. But on the northern side, there's none annotated. Is just because they haven't got there yet, or is it because there's no plans in actually building trails?
So they do have 8-foot bituminous trails up to kind of the edge here. What we need to figure out in the field is kind of where these connect to kind of avoid some of the oak trees and figure out kind of what the best path is topography wise. So they are showing bituminous trails up to the edge. The city park is also kind of up for debate and how it's going to lay out. We've always said that the program of the park will kind of depend on some public input once most of this development is filled in and people are living there. So as a part of, you know, any park process, we want to make sure that, you know, the residents are a part of the input and kind of how this area gets planned. So there's conceptually kind of an idea down here for the park space, but we don't have any determined kind of layouts and plans yet. So right now we're only showing trails up to kind of the edge of the development, so to speak, until we kind of have things more formalized within that.
You know, I think one other important thing to point out about this is that, you know, this is the neighborhood park. And so, you know, it's primarily going to be serving those within a walking distance of it. And also on the south side of County Road 44 is where our 50 acres of community park is going to be, which also will likely have some kind of a neighborhood component to it because it'll be connected to a school property. You know, so the main connections here will be those sort of pedestrian connections as opposed to vehicular connections going into it. The vehicular connections will be critical on that one on the south.
Okay, that brings up a clarifying question, and maybe it's just a schematic and a word. But Matt, you mentioned that as a neighborhood park. It's listed here as a city park, and in my mind, those mean 2 different things.
Yes, that's why I brought it up, because I could see where that would be confusing to people. This is a neighborhood park, and so when we talk about like even the public input process, we go to the neighbors that are immediately surrounding that. It's not a whole community one. Where on the park that'll be south of 44, to me, I consider that a city park, because a community park. It's for the entire community. That's That's exactly why I brought it up though, because I thought it might be a little confusing just how it's labeled.
So is the intent here when they say city park means that the city maintained, not that it's actually for all of the city, right? It's the neighborhood park that's maintained by the city is what the developer's saying. The applicant.
Exactly. So it'd be no different than like Cortina Woods Park or, you know, any other neighborhood park in the community where the city is going to own it, maintain it, you know, take care of it, replace it, but it's not meant to serve the whole community.
Yep. And there is an HOA in this community too, right?
Yeah, that's what I want a clarification, because if my memory is correct, there's signage on the part below that's already developed in regards to the playground and things being for that neighborhood because of their HOA. So
Yeah.
I guess my thought is on the city park, even though anybody can use it, it's for the neighborhood. But when you see that signage in the front, you know, what are people, I guess my question to Liz was, is there going to be parking kind of towards any part of it, kind of towards the city part of it?
No, we don't have parking as a component of neighborhood parks.
Okay.
That's the one thing that sort of distinguished neighborhood parks from community parks. You might have some incidental parking, like most of our neighborhood parks might have some on-street parking that are close to it, but it's certainly not a parking lot. It's meant to really serve. If you look at our comp plan, it calls out a neighborhood park every half mile. And so the half mile is basically a designation of how it's considered a walkable distance.
Okay.
But you know, to answer your question about the signage, keep in mind too that out in this neighborhood area, like over in the first phase of the harvest, they do have their own little tot lot. Just like you know, Jonathan has tot lots all over that might be really close to our neighborhood parks. And so, you know, in these neighborhoods, a lot of times there is that distinguishment between the tot lot that's privately owned and the neighborhood park, which is city owned, and that we provide to all of our residents based on this formula of a half-mile radius.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there's clarification, because I remember that signage being there, and I get why it's there, but yeah.
So will this be just changed to a neighborhood park to eliminate this confusion as we move forward?
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I was the same way. I kept looking at it and go, why is that a city park?
Well, that's when I heard you guys asking questions about roads, I'm like, okay, it's pretty unclear what this park is. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's definitely guided as a neighborhood park.
Because I don't know if I missed it, but I see two squares in that general vicinity that looks like that could be a shelter. And I don't know what those squares are, but so that's why I was kind of wondering the same thing. What's that?
Mayor, originally they were just showing the southern part there is supposed to be the active typical neighborhood park. The northern part is supposed to just be more natural. And they were showing, you know, our typical swing set and stuff, and that it could fit in that area.
Oh,
not
okay.
knowing that there hasn't been a plan put together, but just showing us and reassuring us that there's plenty of room to accommodate what we typically would do in that park area. And that's really all those trails and everything else there was trying to show is that it can accommodate it. It needs to be designed and we need neighborhood input, but just kind of reassuring everybody that there was enough room, because sometimes when you look at it, people don't have a sense of size or scale of properties. And so it was just providing some reassurance. We could do what we typically do in this area.
Okay. Because so really where it's saying the city park, that's really the nature untouched area.
Right.
That's just going to have some trails.
It's a pretty unique parcel because it's got it's an oak savanna. It's got some really cool trees and stuff that we don't really have at a lot of our neighborhood parks around.
Right. Any other questions before I move on?
Everybody get their questions answered about that? I think we pretty well covered that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that got clarified. All right. Just wanted to show the landscape plan as well. You know, with the collector road here, we've kind of implemented a certain level of landscaping and buffering along the edge here, and they're continuing that through with some berming as well, to make sure that it's kind of consistent throughout the entire development here. And then in terms of house products, just wanted to give kind of a visual on those. So the heritage and tradition type homes and lots are kind of that product that you see above. And again, these have already been implemented on the east side, and will also be implemented here on the west side. So this is no different to what we've seen over there. And then the cottage style is that, again, side loaded and front loaded garage option, which is kind of that detached villa or townhome type product. So smaller kind of building footprints for the empty nesters and seniors who want a little bit less yard space and building footprint typically go for this type of product. So in conclusion, we are asking you to make two motions tonight. So one of them would be to adopt resolution number 2021-3, which would be approving the preliminary plat for the Harvest West Third, and then based on the conditions that are listed within that. And then a second motion to adopt ordinance number 986, which is approving the rezoning from open to PRD 77. Happy to answer any other questions the council may have on this. Otherwise, we do have the applicants in the audience as well, if there's specific questions for them.
Questions for Liz or anybody staff wise?
I don't have any questions. I like seeing these projects. I drive by this section every day when I bring my kids to school, and houses are going up like crazy. I know many of you get up in that area too. So yeah, it's just fun to kind of continue to see this area kind of grow and build, and appreciate the investment in the community.
One question, so it's for Liz or Kevin. So if assuming this passes, when would we expect to see Savannah Way connected up with Creek Road in the north?
And you're talking about this?
I could answer
Yeah.
that question probably better.
Yeah.
It's really not driven by this neighborhood.
Okay.
It's really driven by our traffic needs that are going back and forth. And one of the strategies that we've been trying to use as we've been going through this is build the infrastructure as it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
And because there is an unbelievable amount of infrastructure out in Southwest Chaska. Kevin, I can't remember what our estimate was, $60 million?
93.
$93 million. It's an incredible amount of infrastructure to put in. So we've been trying to put it in if it's needed. One of the things I'll talk about in the next, hard to believe, but that industrial site we're going to be talking about next is not that far from the north part of this site.
Yep.
And I'll be talking about some of the next infrastructure improvements you can expect with that one that are going to lead eventually to this connection.
Gotcha. So in terms of the building blocks, because you have to build from both sides, right? And so that's the piece that leads. Otherwise, you have to connect all the way up to the other sides to get that across.
Yeah, because most people in this neighborhood, their most important connection is going to be to 212 at the interchange or to downtown.
Gotcha.
To get to the commons, it's probably at this point almost as easy for them to hop on the highway and get up to 41. So, but it will come, but we're trying to do it in phases where we don't overextend ourselves.
Sure.
And also, we've done enough work that, in preserving the right of way, getting the wetland crossings over the creek, the things that really then allow us to really implement this project when we see that the traffic is there and needed. And so we've got the building blocks for this road already in place. And when we need to do something out here, we can implement it. But as Matt said, just given the level of investment out here, because you're really, again, Southwest Chaska is almost 4 square miles. It's a small town. There's massive investment needed. And we just need to be careful that we don't overextend ourselves. And so we're trying to do logical parts, much like developers now, which you're seeing this, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they would have built this entire neighborhood in one fell swoop. and then just sold the lots off. And now they're taking smaller chunks and building them.
Yeah.
We really need to do the same to make sure
Well,
that we don't get
quite frankly,
too far out.
cities used to do that too. Cities used to go through and put all this infrastructure in at once. 2008 was a rude awakening, and it was a way for us to learn about how to get stuff done, but not do it in a way that leaves us exposed if things don't go forward and happen the way you expect them to.
Just out of curiosity, if that were to connect and go through, what visually, what would it look like on this map here?
So it would look, you mean what the road section would look like?
Yeah, like where would it cut through and things?
So it basically, if you know where, if you're going down Creek Road and there's
One of them, I was just say that
This is the first
map
one.
shows
Yep,
it.
there you go.
there's a barn as
Yep.
you, right after you go under 212 on Creek Road, there's a barn that's there. That's the property that we just
Yeah.
purchased. So it would connect up there as a roundabout, and then it would go to the west on the existing Creek Road section up to where West Creek Drive is, where we're going to talk about next with the industrial. There'd be another roundabout, and it would end up at Clover Ridge Drive.
And so in relation to like this neighborhood, where would that come up to on the map? Like on the backside over there?
Yeah, keep in mind there's a huge bluff drop off there.
Yeah.
And so they chances are they won't even see that down below.
Okay. All right. That's where I'm kind of like, okay, these get built and then a road, and it's like railroad tracks afterwards, and where I'm coming from with that. Just want to make sure I get it. I get the lay the infrastructure when you need it, but just like communication for these people that's gonna come down the pipeline.
Yeah, and the good thing is that most of the stuff that we put together, there's good information that we have out there that shows where this stuff is going to go.
Okay, because you can't always trust. You just want to make sure that.
But this is one I'm pretty confident that they're sitting up on a bluff that, I don't know, Kevin, it's probably 40 foot tall.
The lots adjacent to our wooded open space are probably 70 feet above the collector road.
Okay.
But Councilmember Hubbard brings up a valid point about that, because the realtors never seem to share that information.
Yeah.
I think that it's very clear that now I've been seeing that, I mentioned this a while back, that we've been putting signs in all dead ends saying that this road will continue through. I don't know if Savannah Way has one. I'm not sure if that says that there, but as that new entrance comes in there, I definitely think that a sign should be there that this road will be extending, so that there's no, it's just protecting councils in the future from having to deal with some of those issues that we've dealt with in the past 2-3 years. So
Yeah, I completely wholeheartedly agree with that. It seems like a good chunk of the issues we spent an inordinate amount of time with have been because people didn't realize or assume something different than what's been in the plan for like years and years.
Matt,
So
I
it
don't
needs to be
know
really
if
clear.
Matt, I don't know, is there a sign at the end of Savannah right now saying it'll go through?
No, I guess, one of the things that we were pretty, getting out in front of this is, for folks that haven't gone out or been all the way to the end of the road is graded. So it generally, the footprint of what it is that the road, what the limits are and things like that, that was really done when we graded in, all of Savannah Way. So I don't think that, there's no sign there, but at least I don't think there's a false narrative to where the road would be in the future.
But a sign would be cheap insurance.
But a
Well,
sign
yeah,
is definitely something we can put in.
Yeah, and not to mention that, for the people who move in on those houses on that back side there, they may, they may not know what that plan is because, for whatever reason, they just didn't get the information, didn't see it, didn't look for a realtor, didn't tell them all these different things. And the last thing you want them to be is surprised that, the road's going to come through your backyard, so to speak, right? Even though it's graded, but you didn't tell me you're actually going to build it. I thought it was just going to be like this forever, it's. that's kind of, I know it's weird, but just be completely transparent. Completely agree.
And Matt, if I can, the reason I'm a little concerned about that is if someone happens to talk to a neighbor on the east side of Savannah Way and say, well, what's this about? Well, it looks like it's a service road for that lift station.
Mhm.
And so it can give that false
Sure.
false thought there. So I clearly would like to see that marked that this is a full thoroughfare.
Yeah. There is a good chance. I mean, this will most likely fill in with the housing and things probably before the road gets extended. So it's a good point.
Mhm.
So, all right, thanks. All right, where are we at? Liz, you got through everything, right?
I'm done with my presentation, so it's just a matter of questions or comments.
All right, council question, comments,
No,
concern.
no questions. Just the comments are that I really like this. I mean, I've been involved with this through my days in planning commission, and even from very early on, it was it's Kevin's smiling because we've been on this journey together. This has been a big project, and to see it sort of coming together towards the tail end of this, but also seeing that like we're having more more I guess give to the natural aspects of the site and be able to have like homeowners appreciate more of the conservation areas. That's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a win-win for them. It's a win-win for the applicant as well as the future homeowners because they get more of that beautiful area as well as bigger lots. I think it's going to be a great amenity for those members of the community who will be welcoming or maybe relocating from within our community possibly. Certainly it's it'll be a beautiful area once it's finished. So I'm looking forward to that. And of course, there's we're helping to kind of flesh out the rest of our community too.
So just real quick, didn't we change the open to the PRD? Wouldn't that be done in the preliminary?
This is a preliminary.
Yeah. When we've only done the south side, so we rezoned that and have gone through preliminary and final plat. So we're looking at strictly the north side, which was not a part of the original rezoning process.
Yeah, and I could have swore that we've already done this. That's why I was thinking this was because I remember us talking about that park in the middle. No?
We did talk about the park in the middle as part of the south one.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
All right.
They overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I will say, I mean, I agree with Councilmember Wong about some of the things for a developer to give up 30 lots is a big thing nowadays. So kudos to them for coming to see that. But probably in the long run, it'll probably save them money listening to the size of them walls and stuff like that. And if for heaven forbid there's some sort of failure, that would be a mess. So yeah, I think it's a good compromise that they came up with to make this work. So all right, anyone else? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to adopt 2021-3, and that's approving the preliminary. Or do we have to do the zoning first?
No, I think you do the preliminary plat first and then the rezoning.
All right.
Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-3, ordinance 3, or is it 986, approving the
Oh, you
preliminary
can't.
plat.
We gotta do them separate.
Yeah, no, that's just only the first. Oh, sorry, it's just adopt them. Sorry, I just kept on reading past that comma there. Adopt resolution 2021-3 for that resolution. Yep.
It's just a preliminary plat for Harvest West 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second by Hubbard.
second by Councilmember Hubbard. Again, 2021-3 approving preliminary plat for Harvest West 3rd. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Grau,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Mayor Winchell, yes, passes 5-0. Now I'd look for a motion to adopt ordinance 986 approving rezoning from open to PRD 77.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second by Hubbard.
second by Councilmember Hubbard. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Grau,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Winchell, yes, passes 5-0. All right. Thank you, and thanks for those joining us tonight from the development. I didn't know it. I guess I never asked. Did anyone want to make a comment representing that area? I don't know who it is on here, but
I can't imagine they'd want to make a comment now.
yeah. Sorry about that, but I'll give you an opportunity if you want to. Or you can say goodnight and we'll see you next time.
No, Mr. Mayor, council members, this is Pat Rossi with Tradition Development. And, you know, we had a nice plan and originally, I think, and we were looking forward to moving in with a little bit different product with the manor homes. I think we've got a nice product there. But in the end, we couldn't make it work with the room that we had left between the park area that we had dedicated and preserving those trees and the elevation drop. The walls just became too great of a concern and a cost as well. So
Right.
we improvised, and you know, I think we're getting some extra value out of the lots that we did create, and you know, the project will be a great project. It's just a little bit different from what we had envisioned, but in the end, we're happy with it, and we look forward to continuing to work with the city and to get that manor product hopefully in one of the future areas that we get to work in. But as you've said, this is really the last phase for us up here in the harvest. So we're looking for other areas and hope to get something under contract here in the months to come and continue working there in our relationship with you. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
They've been really good to work with.
Yes.
Good. I mean, it seems like it's always been a good project, and we really haven't had a lot of issues. So that's always good to hear. So, all right, we are done with 7B. We are moving on to 7C, which is adopt resolution 2021-5 and ordinance 987 approving preliminary plot, site and building plan for rezoning Chaska Creek Industrial.
Mayor and Councilmember, I'm sort of excited about this one. This is the next phase of the Fry property, which we currently have the medical office building, Catalyst Medical, at the intersection of West Creek Boulevard and West Creek Road Street, I can't remember, and Engler Boulevard. You know, we've obviously had as one of our strategic goals in the city is to drive more jobs and tax base. And this is sort of our first foray into the industrial side with our new industrial park. So with that, what Liz is going to talk about tonight is the preliminary site and building plan for 2 buildings within that industrial park. And after she's done, I'll talk a little bit about how that relates to the Councilmember Wong's infrastructure question, what that will mean for sort of the phasing of that. So Liz, go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm going to share my screen. Can we see that? I'm assuming yes. So as Matt mentioned, we have a preliminary site and building plan, a preliminary plat, and a rezoning request tonight, and for what we are calling the Chaska Creek Industrial Project. So to give you a little bit of some bearings on where these sites are located, I've highlighted them here on this aerial. The overall Chaska Creek Business Center project is basically the area that I'm highlighting with my cursor here. So it's essentially in the southwest quadrant of the Angler Boulevard and Highway 212 intersection, right off of Chaska Creek Boulevard here, which again is that continuation of the city's collector road system. So we currently have kind of the northeasterly site here, which was approved for a high V back in 2017, coupled with the medical office building, which you see out there today. So again, we're looking at both the sites that were guided for the industrial uses as a part of this overall development plan.
Can you show where Savannah Way is, Liz, before you?
Yeah. So Savannah Way is kind of in this southeasterly portion of the graphic here, but you can see a portion of the right-of-way stubbing off here, and then the property that the city did acquire to gain access to Creek Road. But that would essentially be kind of the continuation of that collector road system from Savannah Way.
Thank you.
I'm highlighting it. And this is just a more zoomed in view if we need to use that for discussion. So in terms of the approvals that have already occurred in this development, so it was back in October of 2013 that we originally approved the concept plan for the Chaska Creek Business Center. So again, that was for the full approximately 87 acres of land that I highlighted in that aerial exhibit. So that's when the concept plan was approved for the entire site. So then after that, in February of 2017, the preliminary site and building plan, preliminary plat, and rezoning was approved for both the medical office building site and high V site. And then subsequently they gained approvals in May of 2017 for their final site and building plan and final plat. So we're moving forward with kind of another phase in this overall development project. So this graphic that I'm showing was a part of the concept plan approvals back in 2013. So it was kind of sanctioned off, or the overall site was sanctioned off into certain uses for the overall development. So there was a retail component on the northeasterly portion in red here, which again was subsequently approved for a high V. The deeper blue colors were for that low-rise office type use. So again, a portion of that has already been approved for and constructed for a medical office building. This lighter blue was a high-rise office type use, and then the purple pieces were the industrial uses. So the deeper purple was kind of this corporate industrial use, and then the lighter purple was this high bay industrial use that was called out. So as we get into kind of the details of what the concept plan kind of called out, specifically for those industrial parcels. So for both lots, there was really this emphasis around being able to provide pedestrian gathering areas and connections throughout the entire development, and make sure that there's clear and amenitized areas for people to use and walk. In addition to that, there was also a comment on the loading dock screening from the creek, because both of these showed loading dock areas kind of on the rear portions facing the creek side. So there was a comment on making sure that there was adequate screening kind of along those edges from the creek area. And then specifically for lot 1, block 2, which is this southerly lot, there was additional comments related to screening from the adjacent residential, which was kind of on Wetzel Lane, so kitty corner, to this lighter purple lot here. Also looking at kind of the overall access into the site, Wetzel Lane kind of abuts kind of the corner of this lot. I'll show it in a later slide or on a site plan just for easier visual, but making sure that the access points make sense from spacing understanding. And then there was also a comment on making sure that there was a sidewalk extension provided on the north side of Creek Road. And then additionally, in terms of the overall use for Lot 1, Block 2, there was an emphasis to discourage the use of distribution centers. And that was primarily due to the amount of truck traffic and intense use that you get out of those types of uses. So the concept plan kind of laid out the framework for what's being proposed tonight. So if we look at kind of the raw data of the existing conditions out there today. So if we combine the acreage of both Lot 1, Block 1 and Lot 1, Block 2, it is about 22 acres total in size. As you could see in the previous aerial exhibits, the overall site was primarily used for agricultural uses. So it's kind of open farmland as it exists today. So there's not a lot of natural pieces integrated into it, with the exception of Chaska Creek, which dissects kind of the mid portion of this overall development. So that will remain intact and be a primary natural element for the overall development. Chaska Creek Way is basically a cul-de-sac that extends off of Chaska Creek Boulevard, which again is that collector road extending off of Angler Boulevard, providing kind of the primary entrance into the development, which is constructed to a certain extent today. And the cul-de-sac is also constructed today, which will provide access to Lot 1, Block 1. Chaska Creek Boulevard, again, is kind of that primary collector road through the development, providing the main access to a majority of these sites here. So Lot 1, Block 2 on the south side will gain access from the extension of that road, which will be a part of this overall project. And then just to mention, there are some stormwater ponds that are already kind of platted out. There's a portion of it already constructed today and will be extended with the continuation of this development. So to break it down in terms of kind of what's being requested tonight, they're looking at a preliminary site and building plan and a preliminary plat approval for the construction of 2 new industrial office spec buildings. So when we say spec buildings, they have not identified end users for these buildings. So these will be buildings that are built and then marketed to the encouraged user for these buildings. So again, we don't have any users to say who is going to be occupying these buildings at this very moment. This is not atypical to other processes where developers will come in and build a building, and then they will market it to have end users occupy them. So again, no end users are identified at this point. And then secondly to that, the rezoning request will occur, which would rezone both the sites from open to planned multi-use district PMD 20, which is the same zoning district that the medical office building and Hy-Vee sites are currently zoned as. So getting back to kind of the projected and targeted users for these spec buildings, being that the distribution center use was not encouraged or amenable to the council and staff during the concept plan, the developer applicant did put together kind of an analysis of the type of users that they project or are targeting with these spec buildings. So they are users, usually people that are renting a portion of these buildings that need flexible office and warehouse space. They have indicated that these are not buildings for distribution center users. Distribution center users typically take up pretty much those entire buildings, but they're not marketing them necessarily to one full user. It's primarily towards users that need, again, that flexible office warehouse type space. So they have called out a couple businesses and other industrial parks that they do see as potential targeted users, one of them being Retail Tech Incorporated, Lifecore Medical, or MedSource, are kind of the type of users that they're hoping to get into these buildings. Again, these are not the end users that they're putting in there, but they do foresee that the end users would be at least comparable to these type of users. So again, these uses specifically are specializing in hospitality and or medical industries, and again, that need that office and warehouse type of use or type of space.
So Liz, question,
Mm-hmm.
if someone were to come in there and say they want to rent the whole building or whatever, could they do that? Is
They
that
could. Yep,
Okay.
as long as they meet the zoning out there. Again, that would be a pretty large user, but it's definitely a possibility.
Well, when you were saying that it wouldn't be a distribution center, that's why I didn't know if that meant they couldn't do it or they have the ability if someone came forward with it. I was just trying to understand that.
Yep. No, they still have the ability to do that. The way the zoning is set up or how we have it drafted right now is it would not allow for a distribution center use. But if there's a larger user that meets that office warehouse component, then, they could occupy the entire building if they needed it.
So let's
One of the
pull on
other
that
things
thread.
that you see happen is that somebody will occupy half that building, and then maybe over time as they grow, they might then occupy or even buy the building and then just occupy the entire building.
Yeah, but I guess let's pull on that thread, right? Because the challenge is that, once you build the building, because the building itself could be a distribution center because it's by definition a high bay building, large volume. It's what, a lot of organizations, SPS Commerce, Tire Rack, I mean, you name it, use this type of building. Someone says, hey, you know what? I can just go buy the building. I'll just get those tenants out of there eventually and turn it over. It may not be now, but could be 10 years from now, right? And it's like, well, but then we don't really have any say over, what goes in there, right?
What we do through the zoning.
Okay.
Yep.
So through the zoning, we have the zoning enforcement. It could not be used for a distribution center. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
Oh, go ahead.
this is the overall site plan layout for both of the industrial sites here. So as you can see, the Lot 1, Block 1 gains access off of the cul-de-sac Chaska Creek Way, and that will provide access to both the employee parking and then also gain access to their loading dock on the rear side here. And then for Lot 1, Block 2, with the extension of Chaska Creek Boulevard, it'll provide them access onto Chaska Creek Boulevard, which would provide them access to their loading dock and their employee parking. And then they're also showing a secondary access onto Creek Road, kind of in the center of their site. Mainly will provide the access for their employee parking. So again, as a part of this overall project, the construction of the utilities and the roadway of Chaska Creek Boulevard will be extended up to Creek Road, which is the southern border of this development, and a roundabout will be put in as a part of that. So as we zoom into both of these sites, starting with Lot 1, Block 1, which is the northerly most site. This site is 9.5 acres in size. The building that they're proposing out there is 133,000 square feet in size. The height of it will range from 34 feet to 38 feet in height. You can see more of a zoomed in perspective of that access point again into the site. So the main entrance, or kind of the main facades of this building, will be oriented towards Engler Boulevard and Chaska Creek Way on kind of the north and easterly sides here, and kind of wrap around as well. And then the loading dock is oriented to the south here, facing the creek, so away from kind of those public right-of-ways. In terms of the parking needs, the way they have it kind of programmed right now with an office and warehouse component, they are meeting the parking need out there. Our code does require that they still show a parking provision that meets a manufacturing use as well. So they are working on that in their final site plan exhibit to show additional parking if needed, you know, for more intense uses. But the way they have it laid out right now, it would meet an office and warehouse component and then some. So they are over the parking requirement in terms of code. And then with the south site, lot 1, block 2, this is a slightly larger site, about 12.5 acres in size. This will be a larger than the northerly building, just by a couple thousand more square footage pieces. So it's proposed at 168,000 square feet in size. It'll be the same height as the northerly building, ranging from 34 to 38 feet. You can see more zoomed in scale of kind of the access points here. So again, the northeasterly access point onto Chaska Creek Way will provide primarily the truck traffic entrance to the loading dock, which will provide them direct access to that area. But it also can provide for employee access as well to gain access to the parking areas. And then another access point shown on Creek Road. The parking also meets the city's code with the exception to show proof of parking meeting a manufacturing use if the warehouse use changes. So again, they'll be working to show that in their final submittal. And then just one other point, with this corner on the site, there is a requirement to meet a 10-foot right-of-way setback for parking and drive aisles. Right now they're showing a 0 lot line setback here. We're working on providing that 10-foot setback in the form of a right-of-way vacation. With this all solidified and figuring out a temporary lift station location, there might be eligibility for us to provide additional footage for them there to meet that setback requirement. But either way, in the final, they'll need to show a 10-foot setback requirement on that edge. So one of the biggest discussion points for this overall development is really the landscaping proposed out here. So per code, the way they're sitting right now with both of the sites, well, primarily with the southerly site, but we're going to look at this in kind of a full overall analysis for both sites. So they are deficient in all 3 categories of our landscape code, and those are overstory, our understory, and our shrub provisions. So with these size of buildings, they do drive a larger landscaping requirement due to the footprint size, but also the height requirement. So as soon as you get over a certain height, it basically doubles the square footage, which essentially doubles the landscape requirement out there. So the point of this is, you know, with larger buildings, it should have a larger amount of landscaping. But when you have to balance the parking, stormwater ponding, and other pieces, you know, it starts to squeeze what areas you can put landscaping that would be able to sustain itself. But the developer and the applicant have been working really hard to try to fill in where they can to really get closer to this caliber requirement. So if we're talking raw numbers here, for both these buildings, it requires 1,886 caliber inches of overstory tree requirement. And where they're landing within that, they're at 1,730 caliber inches proposed, shown on this landscape plan up right now. And if we had to break that down in terms of an overall tree count, that basically requires 660 trees within that caliber inch requirement. And how they're landing with that is they're at 557 trees for the overall project. So that's a deficit of 103 trees if we really break it down. And then getting into that second category for understory trees, 165 understory trees are required, and they're proposing 98. So as they've been looking at this, they've really filled in both the sites to try to meet each site's landscape requirement. And again, they've kind of hit the point of where they've been able to expand to its utmost limits in terms of where trees can go. So they've also have been incorporating trees off-site into their stormwater pond areas, as well as the city's stormwater pond areas, to really try to get to that max requirement. So again, just emphasizing that they've been trying to work towards getting closer to that requirement. It does become challenging when you're dealing with these scale of buildings and the parking requirements that are required with that. So again, the challenge that we're running into is just running out of space for additional plantings. So again, they've been trying to infill where they can to get closer to that requirement. We did provide an exhibit in the report just where there could be potential to add more, again, to get closer to that caliber inch requirement. And that's shown in this upper right exhibit in orange here. Not sure how clear that's showing on your screens, but it's in the report as well, just where we can infill additional plantings. Keep in mind, again, the spaces that have been identified here would be on public property. So again, that would be going outside of kind of the limits of both the site plans here. But other places have been kind of showcased along the southerly building. So if you've kind of delved into the analysis of the report that was provided, so Lot 1, Block 1 does meet our landscape requirement in the categories provided, plus a surplus to kind of accommodate some of the necessities for Lot 1, Block 2. So again, Lot 1, Block 2 is deficient. Lot 1, Block 1 is sufficient, but the overall project is still deficient in that landscape code requirement. So again, that's something we're still working with the applicant on to see if there's ways to get closer to the requirement. But as you can see, it's a lot of landscaping that's proposed for this development, and we'll see if there's more strides that can be taken. And this is just the breakdown of each site. Again, getting into the comment brought up during the concept plan, being able to screen this loading dock area from the creek area. One of the benefits with this site is there is a stormwater pond kind of providing separation of the loading dock from the creek area. But being able to show a rich vegetative edge for the landscaping is one of the comments that was brought up, to be able to provide kind of all year round screening. So they have some deciduous trees lined up back here. And just one of our comments is to really kind of fill in and provide an all year round screening benefit here with more coniferous plantings. And the same is for the south lot. This is a little bit different because they have more direct adjacency to the creek here, but they're also providing a layer of screening along this edge, which actually provides for a pretty nice mix of deciduous and coniferous plantings back there that will grow in nicely. And then with screening to the south, They have provided a pretty rich layer of screening on this corner here, which is kind of that more critical area from the residents. The parking lot will be recessed a couple feet on this corner, but will kind of level out as you get closer to the roundabout. So that will also help with the screening to the residences to the south. Just wanted to show a section exhibit 2 just of kind of the difference in topography between both these sites and the creek. So they've cut a section kind of midway through both these sites, dissecting the loading dock area, the creek, and pond and the other loading dock area. So as you can see, it kind of dips down there and showing some of the more mature plantings when it does get more mature in those areas. And then another kind of level to this overall landscaping area is getting to kind of those pedestrian areas and connections throughout the overall development. So are showing kind of more of a natural connection to these, to the natural area of the creek, and submerging some picnic areas as well into like some of these rich landscaped areas. So for the north side, they're showing in red here some pedestrian movements through the overall site, but they could gain access to kind of the stormwater pond maintenance access, which will also couple as a pedestrian movement opportunity to gain access to some picnic areas, some benches, to really kind of, in essence, escape kind of the overall developed area and provide a little natural amenity to the employees out here. So they have some picnic areas identified, which are a couple zoomed in perspectives on these right-hand side exhibits, and then kind of an optional or just a picture showing kind of what the intention was to this overall area, which is kind of more of that natural look and bench area for the employees to use. This is just a aerial exhibit overlaid with the site plans if we need to use that for any reason. In terms of the lighting, they're meeting our lighting ordinance for the fixtures proposed and the kind of overall light impact to the site and adjacent. Same with the south side. And then as we get to kind of the overall design of these buildings, this is Lot 1, Block 1, the northerly building. They provided a couple renderings showing some views into the site. So they have a loading dock view kind of looking more northwest on the site. And then an aerial type view looking southwest from above, and then from their parking lot looking southeast, just to give you a kind of an idea of what these buildings will look like. And this is just a breakdown of those elevations with the materials proposed on the right side here. They will be meeting our industrial design standards for buildings. They're actually integrating kind of a new architectural metal paneling. It's a diamond metal paneling, what's being shown in this example photo here, to really showcase the main entrance points, kind of anchored on the corners as well as where they're proposing main entrances. So that'll be kind of a nice, unique implementation on the building. And then precast aggregate panels, and then large glass floor to ceiling glass windows also implemented mainly on kind of those front facades. They've also shown kind of a comparison section here with how it relates to the existing medical office building, specifically for this northerly lot, just to show how it will fit in from a scale perspective. And then the southerly lot, pretty much the same material composition with this building. The colors will be just slightly different just to differentiate it from each other. But again, have more of those neutral, natural tones to kind of fit in with Chaska and the overall development. And this is just another view of that southerly building. So in conclusion, again, we're asking for 2 motions tonight. One is to adopt Resolution 2021-5, which is approving the preliminary site and building plan and preliminary plat for Chaska Creek Industrial, and then based on the conditions that are listed within that. And then secondly, a motion to adopt ordinance number 987, approving the rezoning from open to PMD-20. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we do have the applicant here as well, if you have any specific questions for them.
So Liz, I don't know if I missed it. You said that there was going to be, you were going to show a slide later about Wetzel Lane.
Oh, I probably missed that in the site plan.
I'm trying to figure out how that has any, I mean, I know that it's close, but I don't know how close it is.
Yeah, so this is probably the best site plan comparison, but Wetzel Lane is basically where this stub is, right?
Oh, okay.
And provides access to those 5 lots along there. So there was just concern with kind of how, you know, this edge really relates with the residences to the south. We did notify all those residents of kind of the project, but no one came to the meeting or called the city in terms of concerns or questions on that. But that was kind of the intent of that comment, and the concept plan was just making sure this edge is appropriate.
Okay, because is that addition full? They can't build anymore, right?
Right, yep.
Okay, because they're pretty far off of the roadway, so it's not like we got houses just across Creek Road from them. So
right, I think they're roughly like 800 feet away still. So
because I know they had concerns about when we were talking IV
mhm.
way back when. So,
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't think those owners are there anymore that were a part of that original Hy-Vee site plan. But yeah, we didn't get any additional comments regarding this from them.
So Liz, what's the if we kind of took a step back from the site plan to the parcel to the south, is it based on the comp plan, is it still commercial industrial in that area?
It's still industrial.
It's still industrial?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that any future development, basically almost everything to the south here would become industrial at some point. So the matter of fact that there's houses there today is like when they sell, or if they sell their parcels, it's pretty much up for grabs. Someone wants to develop industrial or merge it into something, that's what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. If this area to the south develops, it'll be for that business park use, which is consistent with the north. Yeah.
Is there any intent? Because I think Traditions owns that parcel right there where their mouse pointer is.
Correct.
Do they have any intent? They have like that, and the one to the south, I think Tradition still owns, Club West owns both of those. Do they have any intent of developing those anytime in the near future?
They've been looking at it, yes. I don't know how far in the process they are. Maybe Kevin can speak to that.
And we can get to that in a while because it involves the Creek Road sewer.
Yeah, I'll talk about that at the end.
Everything I ask involves the Creek Road sewer.
Everything. That's the whole world revolves around Creek Road.
Everything flows downhill.
Hey, everyone wants to go to Hawaii? Let's talk about the Creek Road sewer. So the other question I have is that was it page I don't know, it's like one of the it's one of the early pages of the handouts. Like it was on sheet C4.03. There's a annotation about a creek, it says I can't read it. Pre-meander creek alignment. So does that mean that there's actually intention of actually changing the direction of the creek or altering anything inside of that basin? Because when we looked at this property, like way back when, like in 2017, 4 years ago, I actually went out to the property and actually walked the creek. And it's a beautiful creek back there. It's just meanders and really natural. There's this really cool canopy over the top and everything. And it's a great amenity for like people, residents, or, you know, people who work in the area to take a walk back there. But we're not like gonna like, you know, make it all concrete or something, are we?
No.
No. So
It's
I
the
would-
westerly portion that is going to be remeandered. The easterly portion where it's wooded will kind of remain how it is. It's that westerly portion which was ditched
Yeah.
will be made more quote unquote natural.
So are you gonna kind of restore it back to where it was before?
That's the hope. Yes.
So in theory, it should look more like the eastern portion,
Correct.
minus the canopy.
Right. They've been working with the watershed district on that piece.
Okay. Cool.
I had just a quick question. It might be like a stupid question, but just in talks of like being a bicycle friendly community and just in relation to like the, you know, proposed kind of natural setting and the picnic areas, are we putting any sort of bicycle path in this area, or is that just like not something?
Well, we are up Chaska Creek Boulevard. And then that turns into down Creek Road,
Mhm.
which will have a trail going all the way into downtown.
Okay. I just was curious if it was going to link up to.
Yeah, it actually will be one of our main trail segments throughout the community. So basically that trail that's on the north side that goes up Clover Ridge Drive will connect to the south, go down to Creek Road, and then go all the way into downtown to Fireman's and Veterans Park.
Very cool.
And that again, I will talk about when we talk about sewer on Creek Road.
When are we going to talk about that?
Mike.
As soon as all the rest of the questions are done.
I'm done.
All right. Well, maybe I'll just get into it now.
Does anyone else have any questions for anyone on this project?
I do have one quick question. It relates back to the question that you asked, Mr. Mayor. Related to the something in an ordinance to prevent this from being used as a distribution center. I couldn't find that as one of the conditions in the approval.
So it wouldn't be a condition of approval. It's stated in the draft ordinance
Okay.
under each of the lots permitted uses. So it should say office and warehouse is allowed with the exception of distribution centers.
Okay. As long as the language is in there, that's the main thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
So when you're saying distributions, so you're saying like if FedEx wanted to come in there and take it over, that's a distribution.
Yep.
Correct.
Or Yellow Freight or something. If
Or
they're
Amazon. Yeah.
Or Amazon. Yeah. Like Tire Rack has distribution centers, you know, like big, you know, tires. SPS Commerce does the same thing as Amazon does, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
I think so. Because the big issue there is that type of traffic, because it's usually heavy and causes a lot of wear on the roads, gets really expensive for us as a city.
Correct.
So I would have one last question. Is this something that's possibly going to start this year, or is this a couple of years away?
No,
So that leads right into my question, to the answer on sewer on Creek Road.
Okay.
It's actually,
I knew I'd get it out of you somehow.
yeah, it's actually a good segment. So, yeah, we have had discussions with the developer about how they're going to go about approaching this development. They're looking at doing the south building first, which we expect that they would build under spec this upcoming summer after grading has occurred on the site. And then I think their desire would be to do both buildings at once, but the second building, they'd be looking to have a more firm tenant before they move forward with. So I think you'll probably see at least the one out of the two buildings, which does get to the sewer on Creek Road. One of the things that Liz was talking about with the cutoff of that corner at Chaska, right there, that's the location that we had looked at for a potential lift station to be able to serve that building and the building to the north. we're actually sort of re-looking at this now and really thinking that this is a good point in time to trigger the actual construction of the sewer on Creek Road that will not only serve this here, but also opens up the industrial area that's down at County Road 44 and 212. There's enough that's happening here. We really don't want to put in infrastructure that the lift station isn't needed if we put in that gravity sewer on Creek Road, and not having a lift station and not having to maintain it into the future is going to be better for us in the long term. We just think the timing on this is right and that this is a good trigger for that. Now, Creek Road is a 2-summer construction process, and so we have to be ready with the sewer to serve this site when they're ready to move forward with the building. So we're currently going through, Matt and Stantec are currently going through a process of actually looking at how to potentially phase this project so that we could meet their timing, but still understand that it's going to take 2 summers to actually construct this. So I bring it up because it's a big deal. It's one of the bigger infrastructure improvements that we're going to have to do in Southwest Chaska. All said, it's about with the road and the sewer connection, assuming that we make it a trail like we've talked about on Creek Road south of Cottrell's property, it's about a $10 million project. And so so we haven't wanted to do that until we really felt that the uses were there to support that. But doing this now to avoid the lift station, we think is going to be in our best long-term interests. So I guess, long and short, you'll probably see us come back saying that we should work on that project in conjunction with this building going forward.
So
Matt or Kevin, did I miss anything?
No, I think that pretty well covers it, Matt. That the just trying to phase that out, trying to get it done, allowing them to move forward on their existing timelines, and just bringing those 2 projects together.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, I mean, we've been talking about Creek Road. One of the things we still have is a process to come back through council. You will see a feasibility study, so everybody will kind of get to revisit, what the final destination of, kind of what it's going to look like and things. So more details to come, but like Matt said, I mean, this is really the linking piece that, hinges, everything really kind of hinges on. So.
Just a couple comments. One, I don't think Creek Road, the surface is going to last much longer. So we probably got to move even quicker than we maybe anticipated. But that road is going to be pretty soon to the point it's going to be rough to drive down it without somebody getting in an accident.
Well, we actually had to patch it before this winter.
I know, but I just drove it and it's all peeling off with the plows and stuff already.
Yeah, the timing on this, just for multiple reasons, seems like it's good.
I thought, and then my second question was, I thought that it was a 2-year process for this sewer project because of permits. But I thought we already have gotten those permits. Then wouldn't this be a 1-year project?
No, construction is 18 months. So
It's over a mile, about 1.25 miles of trunk sewer. It's a pretty sizable project. Plus we have 2 bridges to replace. The timing to, when those bridges get replaced, it's all of at least a full construction season continuing into the next.
Okay. All right. I'll give it to you.
The key to this, though, is that we can't slow these guys down. And so that's
Right.
what we're working on now, is to make sure we can accomplish that and not slow these guys down. If we thought that this was going to slow them down, we'd probably be coming back and say, let's just do the lift station. But if we can meet their timeline and avoid the lift station, we think that's a better long-term strategy.
What's their construction timeline?
Looking at this summer.
No, but I mean completion.
It's probably best for the applicant to say that, but I would
I mean,
I
rough-
would say probably, they'll start by mid this summer and probably a 6-month construction process before somebody could be in there.
well, if we're 18 months away, how are we going to be able to do that then?
Because we're looking at phasing this project and actually putting in the north section of the sewer first and using it as storage.
I was just going to say, where's it going to go? But okay, I get it then.
Yep. So we would have to pump it that first year, but then it would have, that's to us, if we can keep on going forward with that project and know it's going to get done, that's a phasing that, again, could potentially save us on having to put in something we're going to have to maintain for a long time.
Right. What's the size of this trunk line?
Matt?
18-inch.
And we still can't get any help out of Met Sewer?
No, they were pretty clear with their designation. When they came back and looked at the comprehensive plans, both Carver, Chaska, Victoria, this sewer was their opportunity to weigh in, and they've said no.
Okay. Well, we knew it all had, we still need it to start that industrial park west of 212 and south or north of 44 anyways, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do they still have purchase orders in place on that properties?
They're working on it.
Okay.
Did Met Council give any reason why that they didn't want to take up that sewer?
Been a long time ago that we actually made that. When we initially did the first extension, we went so far as we did meet with them, but I think it's a pretty daunting task, not only for them to understand just the system changes between all of the communities. It was already, the groundwork was already laid and already set. So we didn't get a very clear answer, but the answer was ultimately no.
Basically, they just didn't want to get their hands dirty at this point.
It gets very messy.
The planning for a lot of stuff had already happened.
Yeah.
To the communities to the west, and so this might have been a better solution, but the other stuff had already been planned out, and it would mean sort of them starting over from scratch.
I don't know how many millions they spent to send that thing north. If they would have came down this line, it would have been faster.
Yep.
And plus, I think that was about a 3 to 4 year project.
Oh, you're talking about the Excelsior one that went up over by Highway 7, right?
Yep.
That whole,
That's the whole Victoria.
Yeah, that was a lot of money on that one. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. See, Victoria would love us to take that over there and they can access down there, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? I think we've kind of.
The only other question, just a quick question for the applicant. How, given the market, today, how long do you expect those buildings to be vacant? And and also one other quick question, what are you expecting for price per square foot?
Am I live? Am I on?
There you go. Jay, you're on.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for hearing our application tonight. My name is Jay Moore with Oppenheimer Investment Company based out of Excelsior, Minnesota. We are a national property development firm that goes coast to coast, but we're happy to present a project here kind of in our backyard in Chaska. Just to answer your question, we are expecting, actually we're responding to multiple RFPs right now to users that are interested in occupying some space. as Liz explained, we don't have a tenant that we can talk about yet today,
Mhm.
but we do expect to have some commitments here in the near future. And the industrial sector right now is pretty hot in this market, in the Twin Cities market. You know, there's the expectancy of 2 million square feet to be built in a spec type development in the year 2021. And we plan to start this this June as our timeline, expected timeline. And if we can come together on scheduling and construction, and we've been working with city staff quite extensively on all the plans, and we even talked last Friday morning about the city road project, extending that to the south. We talked about the sewer project. There's a lot of moving parts here that are all coming together, but the expected delivery date would be right around the 1st of December if all things came together. That's our target.
Okay, and what's the price per square foot you guys are seeing for this type of product?
Well, we consider ourselves at market rate. You know, whatever market rent is. It depends on how much office component there is. There's a lot of requests for tenant improvement dollars.
Yeah.
Each space is treated differently. But
What's like
a building like this, what we've talked about, is not a distribution center. We're very clear about that. We expect between 10 to 20% of the front of the part of the buildings being office, and the back being warehousing to support that business.
Mm-hmm. So what's the market rate
We are
right
trying
now?
to attract tenants to the city of Chaska. There's
Mhm.
a lot of competition throughout the Twin City metro area. And so, we think we have a great project here to present. We think we have competitive rates, and we're going to try to do our best to attract businesses into the community.
So what's the going rate for this industrial high base of this type right now?
Between $5 and $6 on the warehouse, and 11 to 12 bucks on the office, and then you blend that in, and it depends how many TI dollars are in there, and it kind of gets a blended rate.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Yep.
Right. Any other questions or anyone? All right. All right. I'm gonna go back to what I need to approve here. So we got the same thing here where we're gonna have to do two motions.
Mhm.
One is for resolution 2021-05, approving preliminary site and building plan for Chaska Creek Industrial, and then the other one would be the zoning change from open to PMD 20. So if there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2021-5, which is Chaska Creek Industrial.
So I'll second.
So Councilmember Hatfield made the motion and Councilmember Wong is seconding. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Grau.
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
And Mayor Winchell, yes. Passes 5-0. Now I'd move to adopt ordinance 987, approving zoning from open to PMD 20.
So moved by Hubbard.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard,
Second by Councilmember Grau.
second by Councilmember Grau. Discussion. Again, this is ordinance 987, rezoning from open to planned multi-use district 20. No discussion. All right. Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Grau,
Yes.
Mayor Winchell, yes. Passes 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. I don't know who's all here, but thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Look forward to working with you as we move forward. So, thanks. Have a good night. All right.
Thank you very much.
We move to 7D, adopt resolution 2021-6 and an ordinance 987 proven preliminary plat and rezoning of Chaska Bluffs.
Mayor and Councilmember, this is another item coming from the Planning Commission recommending approval of a preliminary plat and rezoning. This is a second phase of the Chaska Bluffs that is being proposed by DDK Construction, and I'll turn it over to Liz to present it.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Do one last screen share here. Can you see that?
Yes.
Thank you. As Matt mentioned, we have a preliminary plat and rezoning request for the Chaska Bluffs second. Sorry, my folder thing went out on me. And this is the area that stubs off of Deer Trail, kind of noted on here. Chaska Bluffs first was kind of their first portion of this development off of Harrow Cove of the Harvest development. So the Harvest kind of makes up the majority of this overall development area. So both these sites are kind of on that eastern edge of that development off of the Stubb Street Deer Trail, and then Harrow Cove was constructed for Chaska Bluffs first. So Chaska Bluffs first incorporated that detached villa type product that has been done in other parts of the city. This site this evening will be kind of your typical detached single family with an emphasis on custom home construction. These are just a couple visuals into the site. In terms of the approvals that have already been done, it was March of 2018 that the first edition was approved for their final plat. And then February of last year was when we approved the concept plan for Chaska Bluffs second. So that did encompass 17 total detached single family lots, which they're moving forward with tonight. So the preliminary plat request is for those 17 single family lots, coupled with the rezoning request from the open zoning district to PRD 78. Just a couple changes that have happened since the concept plan approval. The major change for the layout, before they had two separate stormwater ponds, one on the north side of the site and one on the south side. So they have now consolidated both those ponds into one on the south side of the site. And then with the maintenance trail that accesses that pond, it will be in a publicly owned outlot, as opposed to being within actual private yard space. So that's definitely a beneficial change since concept. And then with the elimination of the northerly stormwater pond, it eliminates the encroachments and potential concerns with it being adjacent to the wooded steep slope on the north side. So with that completely gone and moved to the south or consolidated into the south, it eliminates that concern altogether. But with the change to consolidate into one pond, additional trees were impacted as a result of that. So 16 additional trees are impacted with that enlargement of the southerly pond. But again, with the elimination of the compromised location of the northerly pond, the potential erosion to the ravine on the north side, the fact that it has been consolidated to the south and enlarged on the south side, it's in a better location in terms of access and impact to the private lots. And there won't be that concern on the ravine system. So unfortunately, that was just a caveat of that change occurring there. And then also during the concept plan, we did have a comment raised on ensuring that all of the trees that are to be preserved are within city ownership, which they have made that change as a part of the overall lot lines and how they lay out. So all of the preserved trees will be in a city-owned outlot as opposed to being within private yards, which from a staff's perspective will be an easier enforcement down the road. There's a clear delineation of what trees are to be preserved and they won't be in the hands of private ownership. So this is kind of the overall layout, but showing kind of the trees that were impacted as a result of that southerly pond enlargement shown in blue here. So again, there's 16 trees that were impacted kind of on that perimeter as a result of the enlargement of the southerly pond. And then that maintenance access coming off of Deer Trail. This is just a more simplified look at the overall layout for this preliminary plan. So again, the extension of Deer Trail will end in a cul-de-sac, which will provide access to those 17 lots. The overall site that we're looking at is 22 acres in size, which is highlighted with this red outline here. However, only 8 acres of that 22 acres will be developed or disturbed, which is essentially shown in the green and what will be a part of the stormwater pond area. So the remainder, the 14 acres remaining, will be dedicated to the city for tree preservation and for the preservation of the ravine system that happens kind of in the rear area or easterly, easterly and south sides of this development. These will be larger lots, so they are proposing 85 to 100 foot wide lots, which will be roughly a quarter up to a half acre in size, which is pretty typical for a custom type housing product. So again, they will be implementing a custom home build product on these lots. And then just noting again, the ponding's on the south side, the opening or maintenance trail to that is in between a couple of those lots, and this will be owned by the city. The wooded steep slopes are already delineated with the setbacks applied. So the wooded steep slope is in this lighter pink color, and then the setbacks are on top of that. So essentially, you know, this development has been pulled back a ways from that line to again preserve a large area of trees that are otherwise not within these wooded steep slopes and protected by ordinance. So that was intentional to provide again an additional preserved edge to this overall area. And then lastly, sorry,
Liz, just a quick question.
Yep.
So that trail to the ponding, will that be a blacktop trail or is that just a gravel? What will that be?
it will be a bituminous trail down to the pond. I don't know if this, yeah. So you can see up to that extent that will be bituminous, which will provide the necessary access for city crews to get back there. But the rest will be natural around that area. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, no, I was just curious what was it going to look like? Was it just going to be a gravel trail or
no, they'll pave this trail here.
Okay. But I didn't know if that's, I know we talked about that trail dead ending there, but is that going to get people wandering around in other people's backyards?
Yeah, once they get back here, they're on city property. So, I mean, they could,
okay,
essentially still peruse back in these areas if they really want to. And it does couple as an access point or a public access point if people wanted to, gain access to these ravine areas back here without having to go through private property. So it does help with that.
It's far enough off the main road that'll only be residents anyways.
More than likely, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And then the only other point I wanted to bring up, so there were a couple dump sites identified when we walked the site, and then identified during the concept plan. So those are marked with these red asterisks here. So they have done a remediation study on these just to make sure that there's no hazardous materials or chemicals as a result of these, and there isn't, but they will be required to clean these sites up before they get a grading permit. Just a couple other pieces. The extension of this road is about 665 feet. They will be putting sidewalks on both sides up to the bulb of the cul-de-sac, which is typical in developments. And then this just gives a more clear view of kind of that maintenance trail access to the pond area, which again could also provide access to the bluff system as well if people would like to get back in there. And then just with the trees kind of more specified, so 61 total trees will be removed as a part of this project in ponding. And a majority of those are what we consider non-significant species, so cottonwoods, box elders, and aspens. However, there are 25 of those that are that oak species that average at about 15 inches in caliber. So again, majority are those non-significant species that are being removed. But with the ones that are being saved, they are saving 69 trees, which are predominantly in this eastern open area outside of the wooded steep slope delineation. And majority of those are that oak species. So they are giving priority for preservation to kind of what we would consider to be the more significant portions of the development. And again, these areas that are being preserved are all landing within city-owned properties. So they will be maintained or preserved in perpetuity because of that. So they did revise this rear lot line on the east side here for a couple of these lots to make sure that the trees that kind of are meant to be preserved fall outside of those lines, outside of private ownership. These are just a couple images of kind of the custom build notion that they're going to implement out there. So DDK is the applicant, and they foresee that they'll build a portion of these lots, but they also might sell off some of these lots to other custom home builders too. So with that, same process as the other items, two motions tonight. One to adopt resolution number 2021-6, approving the preliminary plat for Chaska Bluff second, and then a second motion to adopt ordinance number 988, approving the rezoning from open to PRD 78. Happy to answer any questions. And then I'm not sure if the applicant's here.
Questions for Liz? I think this one seems to be fairly straightforward, and we've kind of already worked out a majority of the details. And I think the ability to have some homes that are custom built is, I think, probably one of the new other things that people are looking for, that instead of just picking a house that's in the plans that the national builders have. So
And so it's consistent with the concept plan and the preliminary. So there's nothing here that's a big surprise. Just nice to see the kind of pull back from that the wooded steep slope, respecting that some of those trees, which is pretty nice. So overall, I mean, it's not a large, not a complex one, but it's pretty nicely done. So
right.
Yep.
I mean, this was always, like I said, in the original plans, that this would be privately owned compared to the rest that was with the traditions part. So
And they'll probably all fetch a nice premium because they all back up to the woods instead of the other neighbors too. So,
anyone else with any questions? If not, I haven't been asking, but Mike, we don't have anybody, residents or anybody. This one may draw a little more residents than others. There's nobody in the here, correct?
this does.
Yeah, I don't see anyone.
Okay. I kind of forget about that sometimes, but I knew this one had some early questions from residents and maybe they're all squared away now. So, okay. Well, again, if there are no further questions, I'd be looking for someone to make a motion to adopt 2021-6 approving preliminary plat for Chaska Bluffs. Second.
So move to adopt resolution 2021-6.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second by Hatfield.
second by Councilmember Hatfield. Again, this is resolution 2021-6 approving preliminary plat Chaska Bluffs 2. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Grau,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Mayor Winchell, yes, passes 5-0. All right, now we'd be looking for that second motion to adopt ordinance 988 approving rezoning from open to PRD 78.
So moved by Hubbard.
Second, but
I think it was motion by Hubbard, and I think second by Councilmember Wong. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, discussion on this one. Again, pretty straightforward. Hearing none. Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Grau,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Wong,
aye.
and Mayor Winchell. Aye. Passes 5-0. All right, we got through. That's
Thanks, Liz. It was great seeing you.
what's that?
I said, thanks, Liz. It was great seeing you. It's been a while since she's joined us here, but then we voted her up.
Certainly had
I just made the comment this morning that I haven't seen Liz in person more than twice in passing in the last 9 months.
It is weird, but good to be back.
Well, hopefully we'll get back to something that's called normal at some point.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna keep this moving. We're getting late. It's so we are on to bills. Go ahead.
I only got a couple, only a few. So page 18, this is like more of a curiosity question. There's a bill for Minnesota State colleges and universities for the Evo and Pitt refresher. That's assuming it's for the police, which is usually Pitt. Just wondering, is that the one that's run by the Minnesota Highway Safety Research Center up in St. Cloud?
No, it's actually down at Dakota County Technical.
Oh,
We actually don't do PIT training. We only do the EVO training, which is the emergency vehicle operation.
okay. So this is just at DCTC, and that would be for the firefighters and paramedics, things like that.
No, I'd be police officers.
Just police officer. Okay, okay, gotcha. Because I know that there's also an Evo for for the other ones too.
There is, but this one is specific to the police.
Okay, gotcha. Page 20, there's one from Minnesota Department of Labor and Safety. So this is a permit surcharge. So how does that work? I mean, this is a kind of is it legislated as a percentage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, the state of Minnesota, the Department of Administration is responsible for administering the state building code. And so they put a surcharge on every building permit to help pay for those services that they use to update code, to do final interpretation. So it's 0.0005 times the valuation. And so like a new home, $300,000 home would have $150 surcharge. Re-roof permit would have $1 surcharge. So it's based on the valuation of what you have, but it's basically to pay for the state services for administering the state building code.
Gotcha. So then there's nothing we have any control over. It's just legislated. Everyone's got the same one. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Page 29, stop processing center. As I Googled it, I couldn't find, the closest thing I found was something like, it looks like a link to directpayment.com. Is it as an online signups? Is that?
Yeah, it's a secure portal that we use for if people want to sign up for ACH for their utility billing, so that they don't have to fax things in or email things. It's a more secure way for them to get their information over, so they don't have to worry about security issues.
Okay, gotcha. Cool. That's all I got. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Again by Councilmember Grau.
second by Councilmember Grau to pay the bills. Discussion? Hearing none. Nate, do I call this or do you?
I can go for it if you'd like. Councilmember Wong,
I just want to keep you awake and involved.
I'm ready for it. Councilmember Graw,
Yes.
Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Mayor Winchell.
Yes.
My
All right,
work
brings us
here.
to other business. What was that?
My work is done here.
And you did a fine job. I will commend you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate, for your contribution.
You're
All
welcome.
right, I'm gonna
So when I
start.
used to do that, I used to, instead of Mayor Winchell, how many times did I say Mayor Van Isle?
Yeah, more than one. More than one. All right, we are at other business. I'm gonna start at the top of the screen. Councilmember Grau.
All right, I got a couple things. Just want to, I think this has happened a couple weeks ago, but I don't think I brought it up. The fence on Big Woods Boulevard is in, the fencing and the guardrail. It looks nice. It's kind of brought some completion and some color to the road, so it's good to see that. So just kind of a shout out. I know that was being processed, and it certainly looks better than the temporary snow fence that was used prior, right? So
I
definitely nice.
thought that orange would look good on there.
Yeah, I like the green better. So just a shout out to that. The other thing I just have on here is the ice gardens for the Downtown Business Alliance. Ice gardens at downtown. It starts on Sunday with a live carving at 1:30. They do ask to remind people to social distance and wear masks and that type of thing, but kind of a cool way. I'm actually excited because with a young family, we'll continually look for ways to get out safely and participate with things. So I'm kind of excited to check it out. And I think I, again, commend kind of the organizations that put this stuff together, because it's finding new ways to be creative when maybe events haven't happened like that in the past. So a shout out to that group, and just a reminder, and there is information on their Facebook page if you're curious.
It'd be a picturesque day. It's supposed to snow that day too.
Oh. Hopefully, it's been seasonably nice, so we haven't had a cold stretch. So hopefully it doesn't hopefully we can prolong kind of the length of the ice sculptures too. So all right. The last thing I'll comment here, since our last meeting, the US has changed. We'll just say it that way. And, my statement here really, it's not a political statement by any means, but I found myself asking my question of how to talk to kids and have what's going on and everything like that. And, and I really summed it up to, and it actually kind of corresponds with kind of a little, what we heard from one of our commissioner applications about 112% kindness group as well. And I actually challenged my kids, and I challenged City of Chaska residents too, we need more kindness, right? I just simplified it to that. There's a need for more kindness, is how corny as that sounds as a parent. And I actually challenged the day after, I challenged my kids on the way to school. And I said, from what you saw yesterday, there's a need for kindness in this world right now, in this country. And so I just said, I want you to do something intentionally kind for someone else. And I'm going to ask you about it. I expect you to be kind all the time, but I want you to go out of your way to purposely do something kindful for someone. And I said that to him, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it too, and we're going to tell each other what we do. And they did. I heard stories about helping with a friend of a Google Meets situation at school, of getting a background change. Mark, if you ever need to know how to change your background of your Zoom meeting, they can certainly help you out.
I got that dialed in now.
You got it. And then, so I just put that out there as just a challenge, because I think, at times when we've seen things that maybe we thought we've never would see in this country, just the simple things of just being kind to your neighbors, being kind to each other. So again, I just, to avoid being the corny parent on the group here with my young kids, I challenge everyone to go out of their way and do something intentionally kind for someone else, because that's what matters, and people remember that. And I thought that was kind of a cool connection too with the Chaska Cares, and then we just learned about this 112% kindness group here. So wanted to just share that as a story to kind of encourage others to be kind. So, and that is all I have.
Thank you. I think it's agreed. I think we just have to somehow just keep doing ways to show that, and hopefully break some of this divide. And I think elections bring out the craziness in people, and hopefully as we move away from it, things will settle back in. And I think, and part of it, I think, is COVID has pushed people over the top. I mean, we're tired of being held down and locked up, and just want to get back to normal. You want to go watch your kids play sports or go to extracurricular activities, whatever they're involved in. And, you're limited by how many people could be at it. It's just all of those things are adding up. And I'm hoping, the virus will eventually start to, change some of that as people start getting it. Although the news that Councilmember Hatfield shared with us didn't kind of made me a little nervous, but I'm still hopeful that will change things, and hopefully by midsummer, late summer, things are going to be fairly back to somewhat normal, and we'll start seeing some of the local community events happening again and stuff like that. So exciting.
Yeah, I'll comment just on that. I was curious because I actually had just seen it popped up on my phone here that not a distinction that Minnesota wants to be known for, but the first Brazilian variant in the US was just classified in Minnesota. So again, stay vigilant, wear masks, social distance, again, we're all tired, but, and we're going to get through this, but, for every good article you read, there's an equally concerning article out there too. So.
Yep. All right, perfect. You good? Councilmember Wong, you're up next.
Cool, thank you. So just wanted to just mention that the MLK breakfast last Monday was really well done. I know it was all pre-recorded, but really nice job. Congratulations to Leanne Winters, who is our Human Rights Award winner for this year. The keynote from Mayor Sharon Sales Belton was well done. And it's always a good reminder to keep an eye out for lumps in our carpet too. So, we got a lot of carpet because we got a lot of history here. So upcoming events, the food there's going to be 2 more food distribution events at the former Gedney site, one on February 11th and one on March 11th. So both are going to be at like noon to 1:30. And as always, they can always use more hands to help out with the volunteering. A little bit for Southwest Transit. There's Southwest Transit introduced a new grocery getter service. So if you know of anyone who is maybe doesn't have a car, doesn't have transportation, but needs to go shopping, there's actually this service is actually $2 each way on weekday mornings from Monday through Friday from 9 till noon. So basically it's a $4 round trip, and it'll take, you can go from your home to Cub or Target or something like that. And it's at that discounted fare of $2 each way. And they're doing this as a trial because there's a lot of people who don't have transportation and need to get to go shopping. So this is the way to kind of try to help those people who need to do their shopping. And this is because it's a trial, it's only going to be done for 6 months. And if there's a demand for this after the pandemic hopefully subsides, then we'll probably continue doing it. But for right now, it's focused on that 6-month period.
So
So
Matt, are you driving for them with the grocery getter?
You
Never mind, sorry.
love my minivan and you know it.
just load the bus, right? So, but yeah, so feel free to pass that on because if you know of any organizations that have clients who need that, please pass that on because we want people to take advantage of it, especially if they if they need it by all means. So I mean, this is open to anyone who wants to use it. By the way, this morning we had as a part of Suburban Transit Association, and just as a kind of framing this, I can't remember how much everyone was familiar with STA. Southwest Transit, so we're a members community of Southwest Transit. So there's Chaska, Chanhassen, Eden Prairie are members of Southwest Transit, make up the core member communities of that. Southwest Transit is one of 4 transit agencies that's a member of Southwest Transit Association, Suburban Transit Association, along with MVTA, Maple Grove Transit, and Plymouth Metrolink, that are all joined together as part of STA, which is a lobbying group that tries to help drive some of our needs within the capital. So this morning I had an opportunity along with Kevin Burkhart, who's the chair of STA and represents Prior Lake, as well as Len Simich, who's our CEO, and Luther Winder, who's the CEO of MVTA, to present to about 20 or so legislators from around the state to help, to try to, help and give them the tools they need to help lobby or help support us on our behalf. So I was fortunate to be able to present at that, and I think it went over really well. Hopefully, we were able to give them tools that would be helpful, and also present them with information that's accurate, since there's a lot of inaccurate information floating around about some myths about suburban transit. So, for example, one of the common myths about suburban transit that that legislators who are not from our areas, not suburban or not necessarily in our communities, will say is that, you guys are all just express riders. You only take the bus from Chaska to downtown and don't really need it for anything else. So why do you need transit funding, right? And the matter of fact is that, even during the pandemic, about 70% of the prime riders we have are all low income or have no other transportation. We have a high percentage of riders, even across the spectrum, but most of our prime riders, even when it's not during the pandemic, are people who really have no other way to get around. So there's a lot of other users out there, and the bulk of people who do take the bus downtown are a big chunk of our customers in Southwest Transit. But there are other people in our community that we serve, and also Southwest Transit, as we know, provides all these things like transportation to football games and state fair and baseball games and things like that too. So it's something important that we want to make sure that others knew about, that hey, this service isn't just about getting people to and from downtown. It's about a lot more than that. It's about an integral part of our community. A question that came up from the River City Days committee was, what are the plans for downtown road construction this summer?
It's Walnut Street, north of 4th Street, up to Highway 61, and then 5th Street in front of Red Bench.
What about and what about 41 itself? Is that the following year?
That's the summer of 22. We're doing this project on Walnut Street and 5th Street this summer to relocate some utilities that need to be done before 41 starts. So, so it'll just be that section this summer.
So Walnut Street north of 4th Street to 61 and 5th Street to Red Bench.
So
yeah, to 41.
So City Park's not going to be affected.
No.
Okay.
City Square will not be affected
This year.
someday.
Right, this year.
Just not this year.
And then there's no more construction going on down south at the 16941. That's pretty much done.
Correct. Yep.
Yep. So at this point, so that means that, for relatively speaking, that corridor should be kind of back to normal again from a construction perspective. Okay,
Yep.
good. And then, since we were talking about Hy-Vee earlier, one of the question that came to mind is what's going on with Hy-Vee? Because I know that that's something that there was like rumors speculating around for quite a while about what was going on with that.
The Chaska site is currently not in their list of stores to look at for this next summer.
Mhm.
And they have not indicated to us when they would do anything.
So it's just kind of, so at this point, it's kind of an indefinite hold is what it sounds like.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good. Cool. That's all I got.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Hatfield?
Yep, I'm gonna be pretty brief. I was gonna mention the ice sculptures, and then really the only other thing I have for this week is just that January 19th was the National Day of Racial Healing. And to coincide with that, it's not directly obviously related to Chaska, but certainly something, if you're looking for a way that's, kind of to ease into having conversations about racial healing and equity and justice, there's a free seminar or free online event tomorrow at 10 a.m. You can find it on Facebook. And it's put on by the University of Minnesota Office for Student Affairs, and I think a couple others. But it'll just be a good conversation about that topic. And so I just wanted to, if anybody is kind of feeling like, how do I start understanding this, or, if it's kind of uncomfortable, this is a comfortable way to go to a free online event and have more information about that. So that's online on Facebook. You can find that. And that's all I had for this week.
Councilmember Hatfield, could you talk a little bit more about the sculptures in Fireman's Park, like what time, where it is, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so for the ice sculptures, it's Fireman's Park. I think let me bring it back up. I just closed that one.
Sunday, right? Or is it
Sunday?
Saturday?
Yep, Sunday. Yep. And I think noon. I just closed here. Yeah, actually 1 o'clock is when. The ice gardens will be available for viewing beyond that, but on 1:31 you'll be able to see the live carving at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, and that's like a bunch of guys with chainsaws carving ice.
Right.
Yep.
And there'll be a bunch of I'm not sure which ones, if they're carving them all live, but there's all sorts of different ice sculptures that they'll have. So, including, I believe, one of our mayor.
Yep. That's what we requested that, right?
What are you laughing at?
Councilmember Wong specifically requested that.
I thought it was your idea.
Yeah, I doubt it.
But there's a great photo op opportunity, because this could be a Chaska Hawk too, right? Was that still in the plan?
Yep, I think there's gonna be Chaska Hawk, and then there'll be some like pop culture ones. I think I can't remember right now. But I don't know if they even have them listed, but they'll be. I would just come down and see them. Order takeout from a downtown restaurant. Go to the ice sculpture garden. I mean, Fireman's Park is just like gorgeous to walk around right now, anyways. So, kind of a nice event to get you outside this weekend.
It's a cool event.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yes.
Can somebody mute him? Someone, please. Are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, Smiley, your turn.
Well, you know what? You know why I'm smiling there is because I can finally have that selfie, even if it has to be with an ice sculpture of you. So
I doubt it.
Just a few things. Mike touched on it, the MLK breakfast video, really well done. I know, COVID makes everything really hard, and such a pinnacle event for our community to be able to gather. And I feel like they did a really great job of incorporating all the elements that would have been in person, and also just incorporating the members themselves of that commission. So great job to the commission, great job to the city. I'm sure Kevin was the filmmaker in this and the editor, so shout out to him and everybody else who worked behind the scenes.
Actually,
So
Kevin was not the editor.
Mike, I'm sorry. Shout
That's
out
okay.
to you. Shout out to you. So great job. It was really well done. Just other couple of things. I did Coffee with a Cop this last week, and I had the pleasure of talking to Officer Julie for like an hour by myself. It was amazing, but you know, it was really fun to like be able to talk to her. But I just encourage, I know again, COVID makes things really difficult. She was talking about that they kind of had tried, you know, safely to do it inside the coffee shops and stuff, but with, you know, kind of the cases, they moved it virtually. I just encourage citizens. I don't know when they're going to try to attempt an in-person event for that, but just if you have a, you know, moment that morning, just to log in and say hi and kind of, you know, check in with our PD and you know, let them know you're here. So also the CDA, Nate had emailed all of us, but just letting the community know that the landlord and tenant assistant applications are out on their website if people want, if they have a hardship, whether it be if you own your home or you rent, as a resident, you can fill out an application. It looks fairly easy, you know, just gathering some of the paperwork up, and be able to get you know, either up to $10,000, or if you've had previous assistance, I think less than that. But and then same thing with, you know, landlord assistance. I know that, you know, it's kind of like dominoes, right? Like, you know, the tenants can't pay, but then the landlord, you know, maybe can't make the payments too, because like the moratorium on evictions, it's a hard situation. So it's great that our CDA is putting forward that money and assistance. And then also just business grant assistance funding from the CDA is also still available. They had like tiered their applications, you know, where, you know, the people that were businesses that were most affected by the latest executive order could apply. And then businesses that hadn't received any funding could. And now it's like, I think at the end of the month here, like businesses that had received funding can now open up and receive funding. So it's another tool in the toolkit of all the kind of the programs and advantages out there to kind of help keep, you know, any struggling businesses going, as, you know, like Mayor said, we try to return back to some sort of new normal. And then last couple things, I'm part of it's called Concerned Citizens group for the Sheriff Cameroon, for, you know, he puts it on. It's a group of, you know, citizens, like some elected leaders, you know, some people in the faith community, just a diverse set of people that are part of this group. And kind of we talk about, you know, how do we make policing better? And our own police chief is on this committee as well. And, you know, just kind of engaging with the community to try to, you know, really, I think the greatest thing about this is that, you know, Chaska PD and Carver County Sheriff can really kind of collaborate together and really have a unified message of inclusivity and equity in our community. And I think having some of these, you know, citizen groups like Latino, Latino Voices and Roar, and, you know, some of our, like I said, our faith-based community, it's just really great. So it was kind of mentioned that it was kind of like, felt like a hush-hush group, but it's not. So I wanted to put that out there on the record that we meet like bi-weekly. And some of the things we're working on is just trying to get kind of diverse recruitment for non-policing jobs. There's some openings kind of within Carver County, like the office portion and stuff like that. So they're really trying to find candidates that are interested and trying to open the horizons on that. And then just like a Know Your Rights campaign for some of the citizens, especially like in regards to like certain areas and communities where citizenship, you know, some residents might be scared if they're not, you know, legal status, like what are my rights? What can I call the police for? What can I not? I think these kind of educational campaigns are really helpful just to like help build community and trust. Because I think that is at the core of both of our police department and Carver County Sheriff's Office. And then last thing with that was, it sounded like maybe the two were going to work together in regards to like the Citizens Academy, but don't quote me on that because I know it's still kind of in the preliminary phases with COVID. I know that sort of thing makes things hard, but it'd be kind of cool if the two of them could come together and come up with a bigger picture one. But and then this is the last thing, and the state pilot vaccine program. Thought that was pretty cool. I'm not over the age of 65, but for those that are, you sounds like can go on, the website from the Minnesota Department of Health and register to, like, it sounds like, I don't want to call it a lottery because maybe that's an inappropriate term for it, but where you register and you're kind of entered into a pool, and they, like, it's not first come first serve anymore. It's like random selections. So you're
Lottery.
it is okay. I mean, I felt like it sounded dirty when you called it a lottery, but I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's like you only have to do it once. You don't have to keep going back each week or whatever like that. But that's kind of, it's, vaccines can't come fast enough, but it's like a start. So yeah, that's kind of that's my bit. That's it for me.
All right, thanks. All right, Lukey. Nothing? Okay. I had to read your lips, so I was hoping that's what you were saying.
Yes, nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Nate.
I got nothing.
Perfect. Mr. Matt.
Nothing.
Whoa,
Whoa.
that's fast. All right, just a few, some quick things. We talked about vaccinations. Happy to say that we have all of our police and firefighters that wanted the vaccine have been vaccinated. So that's encouraging. And I know that we're working on the 1B category, which, puts our other essential workers, almost pretty much the rest of city employees, pretty much in that next group. So hopefully that continues to move forward as we go. Matt had a very good meeting with Twin City Western Railroad. I'm sure we lost most of our viewership, but I think that was very successful from what Matt explained to me, and we can maybe touch on it on another meeting because it's getting pretty late. But I personally just have gone by there a few times, and I don't see the car sitting there. So I think we're already seeing some forward progress, that they're more on the east side of that siding now. Hopefully that continues. And but like Matt will tell you, and I'm sure he'll nod to say that it was a very successful meeting, and it looks like that we can come up with some compromises to help eliminate some of those issues. So I think that was a pretty fast turnaround from just a couple of weeks ago when they all came to council at a visitor presentation. So good work, Matt. Thanks.
I didn't do anything. Twin Cities Western came with the answers already, so.
Well, somebody had to give them the questions to answer first. So, do we want to talk about opening of City Hall in 2 weeks?
Yeah, so we're going through sort of a soft opening right now, just to get sort of the bugs worked out. So people can come in now. It's sort of in between our utility billing cycles, and so it's not terribly busy right now. But we're going to officially put out the word after we sort of work out the bugs, and people will be able to come in and do those sort of in-person utility billing, customer service counter, building permits, things like that.
So, and I was in City Hall the other day signing some papers, and got all the new signing up, so there's not any guessing where you're going now. I think Nate had a big hand in that. Way to go, Nate. So that's looking good. So it'll be a good way to kind of work some of those things out. Couple things I had, just if you hadn't heard, the Chaska Fire Department fishing contest is canceled for this year. So that won't be happening, which would probably have been happening next weekend, I think, or the following week. I don't know, somewhere. And it just depends on where it falls. End of January, first part of February. Guardian Angels is not having their beef and sausage, their winter dinner. That's not happening either this year. I do want to offer congratulations to Leanne Winters for winning the Human Rights Award. That's a pretty special award, and congratulations to our commission for a successful event that they ran for Martin Luther King. I thought I watched it as well. I thought it was well done, and Great editing, Mike. Great editing. At least I got it right, unlike Miss Hubbard.
Thanks.
And then lastly, before we go, I got the wrong mouse. Council meetings now, we come back again right away next week.
Yes.
Back to back. So we have a February 1st. We do have a work session before and talk a little commission appointments, and then no meeting on the 15th, which is President's Day. Then we're back again on the 22nd. We do have
That's training, social media training.
social media training. Yep.
Yep.
And then in March, we go back to normal program again, which would be, I don't have those dates, but
March 1st.
First meeting is March 1st, so we'd have two meetings back to back again.
And we actually, I found out about tonight, but we'll actually have a work session on March 1st too. Southwest Transit is going to come and give an update on sort of where they're at, and then some of the discussions that they've had about talking with Minnesota Valley Transit Authority.
Yeah, just I think to add to that, I think that before we move forward with any potential merger, I think the intent here is to get feedback from each of the member cities, because if there's not enough support between the member cities, it's kind of a no-go anyway.
Okay.
So it's to look at the pros and cons and see what is our take on it.
All right, that's the last thing I have. I think that pretty much gets us up to date. We'll be back here next a week from tonight, and back at it again, trying to do more good work. Lastly, though, Council, I think we handled this. No matter how you looked at it, I think we as a council did a nice job with the chicken ordinance. I think we did put a lot of time into it. Everybody did their homework. Everybody did a lot of research. This was our first challenge that we really had a split decision. I think that we to anything, and something, I don't mean it that way, but something fairly easy, like whether or not to do chickens, was still a hard decision to make. I mean, it just, you heard it from everyone. So I just want to congratulate everyone on how you handled it, and everyone's opinions were accepted, and now we just went and what did we approve? How many $1 million of stuff right after that, so good things that we're seeing coming forward. So, but thank you everyone for that, and we'll see everybody next Monday. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, unless it's too late.
I guess I jumped the gun too quick.
What's that?
Matt's like, see you later.
I almost said bye too. I'm used to those other meetings. We just wave and off we go. But we got to officially adjourn here. Yep. So I would entertain a motion to
move.
Adjourn.
And seconded.
So motion by Councilmember Wong, second by Councilmember Hubbard to adjourn. Councilmember Grau.
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
And Mayor Winchell, yes. We are adjourned. Have a good night. Matt, you picking the stuff up tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have it in the door.
Okay, thanks.
I got an hour of signing here, so.
All right. See you in the morning.